Chapter 1046. Wrath of an Emperor. There seems to be a battle ahead. Could Guowang have been killed? It's not Guowang, it's Blood Kilwang. A strongest king has been killed. The masked martial artists following in the dark were very fast. They only wanted to secretly follow and fish in troubled waters to see if they could take advantage of the situation. Who would have thought that instead of Guowang's corpse, Blood Kilwang's corpse would be lying on the ground? They didn't dare to continue chasing and quickly checked Blood Kilwang's corpse. The cause of death was quickly found. The bloody hole in Blood Kilwang's chest was the cause of his death. Looking at the broken pieces of top-grade Emperor weapons on the ground, the two seemed to have seen with their own eyes that someone had used an Emperor weapon to self-destruct and killed Blood Kilwang. Of course, they also noticed the small sword hilt that remained in Blood Kilwang's body. The two words West Gate were so dazzling. It's actually Shimin Zun's doing. How is this possible? Shimin Zun's 100 golden sacred swords were very famous. In order to show that he was different, Shimin Zun had carved his name on each sword. The two martial artists quickly recognized that these were Shimin Zun's golden sacred sword. Strange, isn't Blood Kilwang one of West Sword Emperor's men? Why would Shimin Zun kill him? The two martial artists looked at each other and saw the excitement in each other's eyes. The strongest kings of Sword Emperor City were actually killing each other. The one who did it was West Sword Emperor's younger brother, Shimin Zun. This was a major discovery. Seems like this West Sword Emperor is quite cunning. He knew that the Emperor weapon origin embryo was a hot potato and that the other sovereigns wouldn't let him get it so easily. So, he colluded with Guowang and made him betray him on the spot, giving him the Emperor weapon origin embryo. Then, on the surface, he sent Blood Kilwang to protect Guowang while secretly killing Guowang and destroying his corpse. Then, Shimin Zun personally killed Guowang. This way they could frame others and pretend to be the victim, saying that someone else had stolen the Emperor weapon embryo. West Sword Emperor, this is truly a good scheme. If we hadn't arrived in time, we would have been deceived by him. The two masked martial artists were smart people. They thought a lot. Yi Fei had only left behind a few clues, but the two of them had already imagined countless sinister scenarios. As for why Shimin Zun would leave behind evidence after killing people, they quickly came up with a reasonable explanation. It must be that the Blood Kill King was unwilling to be silenced, so he desperately preserved this broken sword hilt fragment and hid it in his body before he died. Also because they rushed over very quickly. The guilty Shimin Zun didn't have time to check the corpse of the Blood Kill King and quickly fled. I didn't expect that we would discover such a secret. This is a great contribution. The West Sword Emperor's methods are indeed vicious. In order to cover up the fact that he obtained the Emperor weapon embryo, he even killed his own people. We'll immediately spread this news. The Emperor weapon origin embryo was very eye-catching. Although not all of the sovereigns had come to fight for it, many of the subordinates of the sovereigns were mixed in the crowd, paying attention to the development of the matter. These two masked martial artists were actually spies placed in Spear Emperor City by some sovereign. They had discovered the Imperial armament origin embryo, as well as the West Sword Emperor's sinister plot to silence the witnesses. They were all very excited and immediately dispersed with their fastest speed. Then, they stealthily spread the news through special channels. Boom, boom. While the two spies were spreading the news, two sun-like rays of light in the sky had already landed in the forest. The one leading them was the West Sword Emperor. He had sent the Blood Kill King to assassinate Guowang, so he naturally had a way to determine the location of the Blood Kill King. According to the West Sword Emperor's plan, the Blood Kill King should have already killed Guowang by now. Then, he would let Guowang pretend to be heavily injured, creating the illusion that the Emperor weapon origin embryo had been stolen by a mysterious person. But at this moment, there was no need for the Blood Kill King to disguise himself. He was already angered to death. The West Sword Emperor's expression instantly turned ugly. How could this be? Who was it that dared to kill my subordinate and steal the Emperor weapon Origin embryo? The West Sword Emperor first suspected Gua Wang, but then he shook his head. Gua Wang was famous, but that was only limited to divination. Even if Gua Wang had concealed his strength, it was impossible for him to instantly kill a strongest sovereign like the Blood Kill King in a short period of time. Could it be that other sovereigns secretly made a move? The West Sword Emperor's expression turned grave. Soon after, the South Spear Emperor's thunderous roar came from the distant forest. What? The West Sword Emperor is actually so despicable? He let the Blood Kill King kill Gua Wang, and then killed the Blood Kill King to cover up the fact that he had stolen the Emperor weapon Origin embryo? One of the masked cultivators, using the identity of a subordinate of the Spear Emperor city, quickly reported this matter to the South Spear Emperor. He described it vividly, as if he had personally witnessed Shimin Zun killing the Blood Kill King. South Spear Emperor was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Like a furious lion, he led a large group of kings from Spear Emperor City and surrounded West Sword Emperor. Ask Shimin Zun to hand over the monarch weapon embryo. Otherwise, our two cities will fight to the death. What? My brother killed the Blood Kill King and stole the Emperor weapon Origin embryo? That's impossible. South Spear Emperor, listen to my explanation first. Seeing the Blood Kill King killed, the West Sword Emperor was somewhat anxious. He didn't want to fight with the South Spear Emperor at this moment. He only wanted to investigate the truth. However, the evidence was conclusive. The Emperor weapon fragment with the two words West Gate carved on it was in the hands of the South Spear Emperor. At this moment, no matter how the West Sword Emperor tried to explain, the South Spear Emperor only squeezed out two words from between his teeth. West Sword Emperor die. Spear light illuminated the world. The sovereign was enraged. It was as if the entire forest could feel the South Spear Emperor's anger and started to shake violently. The South Spear Emperor's subordinates were so angry that their eyes turned red. They felt that the West Sword Emperor was too shameless and despicable. Instigating the Gua King and stealing the Emperor weapon Origin embryo was already shameless enough. Now, he actually wanted to silence the witness and shift the blame to others. They wouldn't believe anything the West Sword Emperor said. The West Sword Emperor tried his best to explain, but he was helpless. After Yi Fei ran into the forest, Shimin Zun and the rest also quickly retreated into the forest and escaped in different directions. This also gave Shimin Zun the opportunity to silence the witness. In addition, the South Spear Emperor had evidence in his hands. The West Sword Emperor's explanation only made the South Spear Emperor even more furious. The furious South Spear Emperor quickly used his actions to show his determination. He immediately started a bloody battle with the West Sword Emperor in this forest. This bloody battle was undoubtedly tragic. The dozen or so kings that followed the West Sword Emperor were all killed by the furious South Spear Emperor's subordinate. Only the Light Wind Crown Prince and Shimin Zun, who had left early, luckily survived. In the sky, the two sovereigns fought fiercely. The South Spear Emperor had pierced a bull-sized bloody hole in the West Sword Emperor's chest. One of the South Spear Emperor's arms was also nearly chopped off by the West Sword Emperor. Chapter 1047. Too unjust. Helpless, the two could only temporarily stop fighting and return to their respective cities. Of course, the South Spear Emperor's retreat didn't mean that he had given up on the Emperor weapon embryo. On the contrary, the South Spear Emperor wanted to gather all the strength of the Spear Imperial City to fight the West Sword Emperor to the death to recover his losses. The strongest king under his command had been killed inexplicably, and he himself had to shoulder the blame as well. After returning to Sword Emperor City, West Sword Emperor's expression was also extremely unsightly. He immediately called Shimin Zun over and kicked him out. "Shimin Zun, you idiot! Speak! Did you kill the Blood Kill King and take the Emperor weapon embryo for yourself? The West Sword Emperor's killing intent was boiling. The entire Sword Imperial City could feel the rage of an emperor. Only Shimin Zun was stupefied. Not only did he suffer a kick for nothing, he was even accused of killing his own people. Shimin Zun didn't dare to shoulder such a blame. He hurriedly explained, "Big brother, I am really wronged. When you guys chased into the forest, I left with Crown Prince Lightwind. I didn't kill the Blood Kill King at all. This is a trap. This is definitely a trap." Actually, the West Sword Emperor also faintly sensed that this matter might be a trap set by someone to make both of them take the blame. Most importantly, while the West Sword Emperor believed Shimin Zun, the other emperors, especially the South Spear Emperor, didn't believe him at all. The news regarding the emperors also spread extremely quickly in the central region of the Buried Gods' land. In just half a day, the 5 emperors, the majority of the kings and half-saints all heard about the West Sword Emperor obtaining the Emperor weapon embryo and killing his own people. The 6 imperial cities were collectively shaken. At almost the same time, the other 5 emperors all sent out envoys to the Sword Imperial City to question this matter. The South Spear Emperor also brought all the experts of the Sword Imperial City and arrived at the city, showing a stance of wanting to fight to the death with the West Sword Emperor. The West Sword Emperor personally brought Shimin Zun out of the city to explain. In the end, the furious South Spear Emperor did not listen at all. The other sovereigns also expressed that they did not object to the West Sword Emperor possessing the imperial weapon origin embryo. However, the West Sword Emperor could not keep it for himself. Without a doubt, this was an extremely good compromise. Even the South Spear Emperor had compromised in the end. The West Sword Emperor wanted to compromise as well. However, the tragedy was that he had become the scapegoat for someone else. The Emperor weapon Yuan embryo was something that the West Sword Emperor could not take out. Shimin Zun's situation was even worse. Because he was the scapegoat for harming his own people, Shimin Zun's reputation was now extremely bad. No matter where he went, he would attract countless disdainful gazes. With no other choice, Shimin Zun could only swear a blood oath in front of everyone. He would definitely find the person who made him the scapegoat and then swallow that person's flesh and blood bite by bite to vent his hatred. Of course, Yi Fei could not be bothered with this bloody incident that was caused by an imperial weapon Yuan embryo. He was currently in a cave somewhere outside the Fist Emperor City, cleaning up the spoils of war he had obtained from the Blood Kill King. At the same time, he also released Xia Jun and the others who were trapped in the alternate space to get some fresh air. Yi Fei, you've caused me so much trouble. Today, even if I, Gua King, turn into a malicious spirit, I will make you pay with your life. The moment Gua King came out, he was filled with grief, indignation, and despair. Yi Fei had caused him too much trouble. First, he used Gua King's name to seize the imperial weapon Yuan embryo. Then, he suddenly betrayed the South Spear Emperor and joined the West Sword Emperor. What made Gua King the most indignant was that Yi Fei had just betrayed the West Sword Emperor and suddenly killed the strongest king under the West Sword Emperor. When Gua King was in the alternate space, he was so angry that he vomited blood countless times. Now that he was finally out, Gua King was so furious that he almost lost his mind. He raised his fist and madly rushed towards Yi Fei. Xia Jun and Little Fatty looked angry and shouted to stop him. Gua King, are you tired of living? You've already become a captive, and yet you still dare to go crazy. The two were about to hold Gua King down, but Yi Fei calmly stopped them. Forget it, he's right. This time, I've caused him quite a lot of trouble. However, Gua King, don't forget that when you helped Bailey Jin hunt down Xia Jun and Little Fatty, you almost killed them. I, Yi Fei, am very clear about gratitude and grudges. You've harmed us once, and we've harmed you once. We're even now. You can leave now. After taking several punches from Gua King, Yi Fei didn't get angry. Instead, he took the opportunity to lift Gua Qing's life and death seal. Gua Qing was stunned. He thought that Yi Fei had let him out to kill him, so he fought Yi Fei with all his might. However, he didn't expect that Yi Fei would let him go. Well, Yi Fei, just you wait. It's a small world. Let's wait and see. Gua Qing gnashed his teeth. Seeing a chance to live, he stopped going crazy and started running towards the Fist Emperor city. Gua Qing had decided that he must hurry back to the South Spear Emperor and explain this matter to him. He still wanted to join the Divine Martial Academy, and he didn't want to offend the two emperors. Seeing Gua Qing's disappearing figure, Xia Jun's face flashed with a touch of worry. Brother, are we really going to let him go? He knows a lot of our secret. If we don't let him go, can we kill him? If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have found you and gotten the Emperor weapon embryo. It's not good to burn the bridge after crossing the river. Besides, I'm confident that Gua Qing will come back soon. Yi Fei said with a confident smile. Xia Jun and the little fatty's expressions were strange. Brother, you're not plotting something again, are you? Actually, I'm an upright person. Yi Fei's attitude was very sincere. However, Xia Jun looked at him with extreme disdain. If you're sincere, then there are no bad people in this world. The little fatty also sighed honestly. Dad is right. Brother, there are a lot of things that I can learn from you. His feet didn't touch the ground. Gua Qing, who had recovered his strength, ran away as fast as he could. He wished he could fly back to the South Spear Emperor and prove his loyalty in detail. However, the South Spear Emperor didn't give him the chance. As soon as he got close to the simple city walls of the Fist Emperor city, Gua Qing suddenly had a feeling of trepidation. He hurriedly took out the ancient mirror and looked at himself. He saw that his glabella was dark and dark clouds were covering his head. This was clearly a sign of imminent death. Before Gua Qing could understand what was going on, the two warriors who were returning to the Fist Emperor city were already talking as they walked. Have you heard? Recently, a big event happened in the land of buried gods. The South Spear Emperor found the Emperor weapon embryo but was betrayed by his subordinate, Gua Qing, and suffered heavy losses. The South Spear Emperor was so angry that he went crazy. If he catches Gua Qing, the traitor, he'll skin him alive in front of everyone. What, skin him alive? Gua Qing trembled all over. He had been the South Spear Emperor's subordinate for a long time and knew that the South Spear Emperor was a ruthless person who would rather kill the wrong person than let his opponent go. Since the South Spear Emperor had given such an order, no matter how Gua Qing explained, the South Spear Emperor would skin him alive in front of everyone to keep his promise. Oh no, that Yi Fei really got me into trouble. It seems that I can't go back to the South Spear Emperor. I can only go to the Sword Emperor city and explain to the West Sword Emperor, and then reveal Yi Fei's true colors. Gua Qing's eyes flashed with hatred. Chapter 1048. Begging for shelter. Hey, have you heard? The South Spear Emperor led his troops and fought with the West Sword Emperor outside Sword Emperor city. Just the number of casualties is in the hundreds. Haha, that was a few days ago. The latest news is that the Great Desert Flame Emperor and the East Blade Emperor personally mediated. Now, both sides have reached a truce. At the same time, the West Sword Emperor issued an order for all martial artists. What order? An ordinary half-sage who had just arrived came over and asked. The order is simple. The West Sword Emperor suspects that the other emperors instigated Gua Qing to steal the Emperor weapon Yuan embryo and frame Sword Emperor city. In order to prove their innocence, the other emperors have jointly announced that anyone who discovers Gua Qing's whereabouts will be rewarded with 1 billion high-grade spirit stones. Anyone who captures Gua Qing will be rewarded with 5 billion high-grade spirit stones. The other martial artists gasped, "My God, 5 billion! But Gua Wang is a traitor who betrayed 2 emperors. If he dares to show up, the emperors won't even need to do anything. The subordinates of the two emperors will immediately cut him into pieces. Asterisk hiss. Asterisk the sound of someone sucking in a cold breath came from behind. Gua King had followed them all the way. When he heard these words, he no longer had cramps, but tears of grievance flowed down his cheeks. Only the heavens knew that he had been wronged. He, Gua King, had done nothing. It was clearly Yi Fei who had done the wrong thing. Why was he the scapegoat? The heavens are unfair. Gua King's face was covered in tears. He finally understood why his glabella was so dark and why the clouds above his head were so heavy. With such a huge scapegoat on his shoulders, how could he not feel bad? The 5 billion reward and the whereabouts of the emperor weapon Yuan embryo were enough to make all the strongest kings in the land of buried gods go after him with bloodshot eyes. Gua King understood that even if he took the initiative to explain himself, the fact that Yi Fei had used his name to betray the South Spear Emperor and fool the West Sword Emperor would cause the two sovereigns to kill him for the sake of their reputation before settling the score with Yi Fei. I just don't understand. We're all young kings, but the other kings are all living a comfortable life. Why am I, the Gua King, so unlucky? I have a home, but I can't go back, and I can't go to an emperor. Could it be that the heavens want me, the Gua King, to die? Gua King's heart was filled with grief, anger, and despair. He had finally become a young king realm expert and was about to join the Divine Martial Academy. He had a bright future ahead of him, but he had met Yi Fei. How could Gua Wang accept this? How could he tolerate this? If it wasn't for that Yi Fei, how could I, the Divinator King, have ended up in such a miserable state? Even if I die, I'll settle the score with him. Yes, let's do it this way. Since it was Yi Fei who harmed me, he must take responsibility. I must make him take responsibility for me to the end. After hearing the attitude of the two emperors, Gua King no longer dared to enter the Fist Emperor city, let alone show his face. As soon as Gua Wang said that he would wait and see with Yi Fei for an hour, he was scared out of his wits and rushed back to the cave where Yi Fei was staying. Big Brother is really godly. Xia Jun and Little Fatty were betting that Gua King might not come back if he ran away, but in less than an hour, Gua King came back, looking like a rubber ball rolling in. Both of them were stupefied. Yi Fei, on the other hand, was calm and composed. He pretended to be surprised and looked at Gua King. Gua King, why are you back? Did you bring your men to take revenge on me so soon? Hearing this, Gua King's face twitched and his heart twitched violently. He remembered that he had just threatened Yi Fei, telling Yi Fei to wait and see. Gua King felt ashamed, but he didn't want to be the victim of the anger of the two emperors. Yi Fei might be his only support. Flop. Gua King came in and knelt before Yi Fei, his face full of grief and indignation. Young Master Yi, please don't play with me. You played me so miserably. I'm already yours. Young Master Yi, you have to take responsibility for me to the end. After saying this, Gua King could no longer bear the grievance in his heart. Tears streamed down his face again as he looked at Yi Fei bitterly. That gaze made Yi Fei and Xia Jun's scalps tingle. You're already my people, yet you still want to take responsibility until the end. These words sent chills down their spines. Only the Little Fatty was still a little muddle-headed and did not understand Gua King's words. What do you mean? Simply put, I've decided to follow young Master Yi. I ask that young Master Yi take responsibility for me. Gua King was still in shock and spoke incoherently. Fortunately, they were all martial artists and had amazing comprehension. Yi Fei quickly understood what Gua King meant. Xia Jun also asked with a smile, "It seems that Gua King has nowhere else to go and wants to seek refuge with us. But Big Brother, how did you know that Gua King would come back and ask us to take him in? Do you even need to ask? I pretended to be Gua King and did such a big thing. Not only did I slap the South Spear Emperor in the face, but I also humiliated the West Sword Emperor. If you were them, would you let Gua King go? You'd rather kill the wrong person than let him go. Yi Fei smiled faintly. It was because he knew this clearly and guessed that Gua King had nowhere else to go that he took the initiative to let Gua King go. Not long after Gua King ran out, he immediately came back and asked to be taken in. After giving a simple explanation to Xia Jun, Yi Fei looked at Gua King and said, "Gua King, why should I believe you? Who knows if you'll betray me? I can make a heavenly oath. I sincerely follow young Master Yi. If I betray the young Master Yi, I'll die a horrible death." Gua King also understood his situation. Apart from seeking refuge with Yi Fei, no one else would dare to take him in. Most importantly, most of the martial artists in the land of buried gods were looking for him. If he showed up, he would die. Although this was all Yi Fei's fault, in order to survive, Gua King immediately swore a heavenly oath with 30% grievance, 30% resentment, and 40% sincerity. Yi Fei nodded in satisfaction. Gua King cultivated the Tao of talismans, and the heavenly will was the core of his cultivation. If he violated the heavenly will, he would suffer a backlash from the heavenly will, and his abilities would basically be crippled. Therefore, Gua King was very sincere in seeking refuge with Yi Fei. Since he was sincere, Yi Fei wouldn't let go of a special talent like Gua King. He personally walked over and helped Gua King up. "Gua King, since you're willing to follow me, we're on the same side from now on. We'll share our joys and sorrows. Oh right, this is your reward for cooperating with me to obtain the Emperor Weapon Embryo." Yi Fei was a good person to the end. The Blood Killer King killed indiscriminately in the forest and obtained many spatial belts from martial artists. Yi Fei didn't have much interest in these ordinary martial artists' treasures. Apart from taking the spirit stones, he simply divided the rest of the treasures among Xia Jun and Little Fatty. He also casually gave Gua King some treasures. Gua King felt a lot better. He wanted to express his loyalty and put on a grateful face, but when he thought about how his miserable life was all because of Yi Fei, and how he couldn't take revenge, he shamefully sought refuge with Yi Fei. Gua King couldn't feel grateful at all. Chapter 1049. Emperor of Fist City. In the end, although Gua King did not feel particularly grateful to Yi Fei, he was still somewhat touched that Yi Fei was willing to take him in despite the risk of offending two emperors. Knowing that Yi Fei was going to enter Emperor of Fist City to look for someone, Gua King tactfully took the initiative to help Yi Fei deduce Lin Tianjiao's specific location. At the same time, he did not want to cause trouble for Yi Fei and save his own life. As soon as the divination was completed, Gua King strongly requested to be thrown into the Sumeru space immediately. He wanted to go into seclusion now. But Yi Fei and Xia Jun both knew that Gua King must have heard something in Emperor of Fist City and was so scared that he hid himself and did not dare to show his face. Yi Fei was undoubtedly very happy that he had successfully subdued a young king with a special ability, Gua King. After throwing the increasingly obedient dragon turtle into the beast mark space and asking Xiao Chao to discipline it strictly, Yi Fei, Xia Jun, and the Little Fatty walked into Emperor of Fist City. To be honest, Yi Fei's impression of the Fist Emperor City wasn't very good. The city walls were only half built, and the buildings inside were very simple and crude. They were either stone houses or cave. But even so, the Fist Emperor City still attracted many warriors like a flock of duck. At the end of the day, a city with a ruler overseeing it was relatively safer. Moreover, everyone came to the land of buried gods to gain experience, not to live. It was already good enough to have a wall. No one would waste time on building the city walls. Many warriors who entered the city directly built a stone house, dug a cave, or simply found a stone and sat cross-legged on it to cultivate. Yi Fei was surprised to find that the mountain of bones occupied by Emperor of Fist City was actually a paradise. The spiritual energy in the city was at least 10 times richer than outside. It seems that the city built by the emperors is not only safe, but also a good place to cultivate. Needless to say, cultivating in the imperial city was not free. Other than the ruler's direct subordinates, other martial artists had to pay a certain amount of spirit ores if they wanted to cultivate in the city. However, the Fist Emperor's city was very strange. When Yi Fei and the other two entered the city, no one asked them for spirit stones. Xia Jun naturally asked around. It was only then that Yi Fei found out that the Fist Emperor city did not require spirit stones and could be entered and exited for free. It was actually thanks to him. What Yi Fei was worried about had happened. The Shunwu alliance had caused a huge commotion by pulling people into the alliance. Not only was the profit from pulling people into the alliance shocking, but the worst thing was that Yi Fei had promised that as long as they paid enough spirit stones, they could directly join the Shunwu Sacred Academy. Many warriors who were not strong enough also paid the spirit stones happily because of this. They were ready to join the Sacred Martial Arts Academy with their leader in the future. It was a pity that the Shunwu alliance had bragged too much. Without Yi Fei's control, the news quickly reached the Northern Fist Emperor's ears. Fortunately, Yi Fei had run fast enough. As soon as he left, the Real Northern Fist Emperor came knocking on his door. As a result, the Shunwu alliance's bragging was instantly exposed. Tens of thousands of martial artists who wanted to take advantage of the situation and curry favor with the Sacred Martial Arts Academy all lost everything. It was said that more than 10 upper echelons of the Shunwu alliance were beaten up by the angry crowd on the spot. Unfortunately, no matter how hard they searched, they couldn't find the alliance chief who had pretended to be the Northern Fist Emperor. In their anger, many people blamed the Northern Fist Emperor for this. After all, that impostor had used the Northern Fist Emperor's name. Despite the Northern Fist Emperor's various explanations, there were too many martial artists who had suffered losses this time. Even someone as strong as the Northern Fist Emperor did not have the courage to bear the anger of tens of thousands of martial artists. Helpless, the Northern Fist Emperor could only accept his subordinate's suggestion and open up the Fist Emperor city for free so that everyone could come and go as they pleased. Only then did he manage to calm the anger of the tens of thousands of martial artists. After understanding what had happened, Yi Fei immediately wiped the cold sweat off his head with a guilty conscience. That was really close. Fortunately, I ran fast enough. Big brother, I saw Lin Tianjiao. Xia Jun's eyes were very sharp. According to him, they were a pair of eyes that could detect beautiful women from 1,000 meters away. Therefore, Xia Jun saw Lin Tianjiao, who was sitting cross-legged on a rock, cultivating from 1,000 meters away. There were many people like Lin Tianjiao in the surroundings. This was also the evil consequence of the Fist Emperor city being overcrowded. Of course, Yi Fei would definitely not admit to this evil consequence. Brother Dongfang, it seems like you will have to continue being the scapegoat. Yi Fei silently sympathized with the Northern Fist Emperor before squeezing over to Lin Tianjiao's side with Xia Jun and Little Fatty. At this moment, Lin Tianjiao also noticed Yi Fei. A look of excitement appeared on his face. Yi Fei, Xia Jun, I knew that you guys would be fine. Lin Tianjiao's strength had improved tremendously in the few months that they had not seen each other. Now, he was also an almighty at the Earth Thorough 10th level. This made Xia Jun and Little Fatty particularly envious. Looking at Lin Tianjiao's comfortable life in the Fist Emperor city and thinking about the miserable experiences they had suffered while being hunted down, the two of them were depressed to discover that the weakest among them was actually living the most comfortable life. Of course, Lin Tianjiao's comfortable life was also his good fortune. When the four of them gathered together, Lin Tianjiao beamed with joy as he talked about his lucky experiences. Only then did Yi Fei and the other two realize how heaven-defying Lin Tianjiao's luck was. After he was randomly teleported here, he happened to be teleported together with the Northern Fist Emperor. What was even more fortunate was that the Northern Fist Emperor only remembered two names in the Snow Wind Empire. They were Bailey Zhen and Yi Fei. Hearing that Lin Tianjiao was Yi Fei's good friend, the Northern Fist Emperor gave Lin Tianjiao a hand in passing. So along the way, I followed the Northern Fist Emperor here. While cultivating here in peace, I wholeheartedly inquired about you guys. However, my strength was too low. In the Fist Emperor city, there were also people who wanted to capture me and claim credit from Bailey Zhen and Lu Ming. I didn't dare to leave the city. By the way, Yi Fei, Dongfang Yu asked me to tell you that if you come to the Fist Emperor city, he wants to see you. While reminiscing, Lin Tianjiao suddenly remembered the Northern Fist Emperor's request and quickly told Yi Fei. Yi Fei immediately blushed with shame. In his heart, he had always regarded the Northern Fist Emperor as an enemy. That was why he pretended to be the Northern Fist Emperor and ruthlessly plundered the land of the Divine Martial Union. Not only did the Northern Fist Emperor not mind taking the blame for him, he even protected Lin Tianjiao. Now, it seemed that Dongfang Yu was actually a good person. Letting Dongfang Yu take the blame was always a bit embarrassing. By the way, why is the Northern Fist Emperor looking for me? Yi Fei asked cautiously. I don't know about this, but a few days ago, I heard from a strongest king in the Fist Emperor city that they seemed to have discovered a very powerful secret realm. They went in a few times but returned with no result. The Northern Fist Emperor looking for you might be related to this matter. After Lin Tianjiao told him the news, Yi Fei's spirit shook. There were countless treasures in the burial godland, but most of them were hidden in various secret realms. The lucky ones like Zhao Yu easily found a dozen secret realms. Chapter 1050. Sure men, those who are abandoned by the heavens are plagued with misfortune. I'm even more unlucky. I can't believe that I'm still so unlucky after changing my fate. Yi Fei sighed. He thought about how Zhao Yu could find more than a dozen secret realms every time he went out. It seemed that he was too busy. Yi Fei looked at himself. He had racked his brains to get an emperor weapon embryo, but it was still a hot potato that he didn't dare to see. Yi Fei decisively gave up on finding secret realms. Although I'm unlucky and can't find any secret realms, it doesn't mean that I can't follow others and enter secret realms that have already been discovered. Besides, the Northern Fist King not only helped Lin Tianjiao, but also took the blame for me. Why don't I help him a little to return the favor? Yi Fei couldn't find a reason to refuse the Northern Fist King. Okay, where is the Northern Fist King? I'll go see him now. No need, I'm already here. Brother Yi, you can call me Dongfang Yu. He turned around and found that the crowd had unknowingly dispersed. At the same time, a young emperor walked over, surrounded by several strongest kings and a large group of kings. Brother Yi, long time no see. The Northern Fist King cupped his fists at Yi Fei indifferently. Brother Dongfang, you're still as elegant as ever after we parted in the Snow Wind Empire. Seeing that Dongfang Yu had come to see him with such a big entourage, Yi Fei actually felt a little guilty. This guy won't come to settle the score with me, right? No, I have to ask him clearly. Ahem, by the way, Brother Dongfang, I heard that a few emperors are fighting over the emperor weapon embryo. Why didn't you join in? Yi Fei began to beat around the bush. Dongfang Yu smiled and shook his head. The East Blade King and the Great Desert Flame King have already intervened. It's meaningless for me to go there. However, recently, a person actually impersonated me and brought huge losses to me and the Fist Emperor city. I must find that person. Dongfang Yu suddenly stared at Yi Fei with bright eyes. Of course, he didn't come personally to ask for Yi Fei's help. According to my investigation, that person only did two things when he snuck into the Divine Martial Union. The first was to plunder spirit stones, and his methods were outrageous. The second thing was to ask around about Xia Jun and Pang Bei. I wonder if Brother Yi and your two brothers have any impression of this person? As long as you can provide me with clues, I, Dongfang Yu, will be very grateful. Dongfang Yu's attitude was sincere. Although he had solved the mess of the divine martial union with free entry, his reputation was still tarnished, which made him very depressed. Hearing this, Yi Fei broke out in a cold sweat. He didn't just have an impression. He was clearly standing in front of Dongfang Yu. However, even though he had done it, he was determined not to admit it. After all, Yi Fei had already offended 2 sovereigns. If the North Fist Emperor and half of the young sovereigns in the burial ground of gods were added to the list, Yi Fei wouldn't have the courage to continue staying in the burial ground of gods. Of course, Yi Fei wouldn't admit that he was the one who had impersonated the North Fist Emperor. At the same time, Yi Fei's face was filled with anger. He scolded angrily, "This is outrageous. Brother Dongfang has always been a person I respect. There is actually someone who is so vile as to impersonate Brother Dongfang and tarnish Brother Dongfang's reputation. This kind of thing cannot be tolerated. Xia Jun, little fatty, do you have any clues about that person? If you do, Brother Dongfang will not need to do anything. I will personally kill him." "Brother, we don't know." Fatty was at a loss. Xia Jun also shook his head. They weren't as lucky as Lin Tianjiao. As soon as they entered the burial ground of gods, they were hunted down. How could they know about the divine martial union? Of course, as clever as Xia Jun was, he found that Yi Fei had been spending a lot of money recently. He didn't feel any heartache when spending tens of millions of spirit stones. This made Xia Jun a little apprehensive. However, as a qualified underling, Xia Jun wouldn't expose Yi Fei. Yi Fei's words resonated with the nearby martial artists. Many of them were former members of the Divine Martial Union. They all roared in anger, declaring that they would beat the Union Master who deceived them to death. Their faces were filled with pain and regret. They joined the Divine Martial Union with the intention of currying favor with the Divine Martial Academy and taking advantage of the situation. In the end, they were the ones who were bleeding. Enough. Everyone, don't worry. No matter who that person is, I, the Northern Fist Emperor, will definitely find him and give everyone an explanation. While speaking, the Northern Fist Emperor had been observing the expressions of Yi Fei and the other 2. He saw Yi Fei's anger and Xia Jun's and Fatty's confusion. When he found that the 3 of them didn't seem to be faking it, the Northern Fist Emperor couldn't help but sigh. He knew that this lead was broken. Strange. Who is that person? The Northern Fist Emperor couldn't help but fall into deep thought. What Yi Fei was most afraid of now was that the Northern Fist Emperor was deep in thought. He had a guilty conscience. Most importantly, he couldn't defeat the Northern Fist Emperor now. Yi Fei immediately restrained his anger and quickly led the Northern Fist Emperor's thoughts to the secret realm. "Brother Dongfang, I heard that you found a very powerful secret realm." "That's right. That secret realm is very dangerous. With the strength of our Fist Emperor city alone, it's very difficult to get the treasures inside. I happen to hear that Brother Ye's defense is very powerful. With your help, we are very confident that we can break into that secret realm this time." Dongfang Yu's thoughts were interrupted, but he wasn't unhappy. Instead, he immediately invited Yi Fei with great enthusiasm. Only then did Yi Fei realize that Dongfang Yu had brought so many people with him. It was very likely that he was going to attack the secret realm again. But Yi Fei wasn't dissatisfied. On the contrary, he appreciated Dongfang Yu's frankness. "A secret realm that even Dongfang Yu can't crack. Even if Brother Dongfang didn't invite me, I would still like to see it. Shall we go now? I was right about Brother Yi." Dongfang Yu also appreciated Yi Fei's frankness very much. "But I have to say something in advance. That secret realm can only be entered by those in the semi-saint realm. Your 3 brothers may not be able to pass it. It doesn't matter. We'll just stay here and cultivate." Xia Jun was very sensible. After all, a secret realm that could make an emperor return without success must be very dangerous. Compared to treasures, Xia Jun cared more about his own life. The little fatty and Lin Tianjiao shook their heads indifferently. Even the strongest Xia Jun didn't want to go. They knew that there must be danger inside. Yi Fei could only say to them helplessly, "Well, you guys stay here and cultivate. Wait for me to come back. By the way, Brother Dongfang, where is that secret realm?" "It's not far away. It's in our Fist Emperor City. Brother Yi, you will never know where the secret realm is hidden," one of the strongest kings interrupted. Yi Fei really didn't know that the secret realm was in the cave of the White Bone Mountains. Moreover, it was a different space at the top of the cave. It was very similar to the entrance to the Emperor's tomb. Yi Fei almost suspected that the secret realm that Dongfang Yu found was the Emperor's tomb that he had entered before. Fortunately, the entrance to the different space in the Fist Emperor City was different from the inside of the Emperor's tomb. Because after entering the different space, Yi Fei only saw one thing in front of him. It was a huge stone door. It was like a city wall or a prison door that imprisoned prisoners. Chapter 1051. The City of Purgatory Boom. The floodgates of memories opened quickly. Staring at the stone door in front of him, Yi Fei finally realized what was wrong. He had seen this stone door once in the tomb of the Wangqing Great Emperor. The tomb keeper's existence was to guard this stone door for generations. Yi Fei could not connect the tomb of the Great Emperor with the stone door in the land of buried gods. Moreover, these two stone doors looked very much like the same stone door. However, the question was, how could the same stone door appear in two different places? Am I overthinking things? Are these two stone doors just coincidentally the same? Yi Fei rubbed his chin and fell into deep thought. Actually, Yi Fei did not know that he had seen the same stone door not twice, but 3 times. In the eye of the North Sea, the eye of the sea where the mermen hid, there was a third stone door. It was just that the mermen hid it well, so Yi Fei did not discover it. "Brother Yi, do you recognize this stone door?" Dongfang Yu was very curious when he saw Yi Fei staring at the stone door in a daze. "No, I just feel that the appearance of this stone door is a little strange. Could there be some demon sealed inside?" Yi Fei remained calm. After all, he was not very familiar with Dongfang Yu, so Yi Fei did not want to reveal anything about the stone door. Dongfang Yu nodded in relief, thinking that Yi Fei was worried that it was too dangerous inside. He explained in detail, "Brother Yi, don't worry. Although it is dangerous inside, with our strength, even if we can't pass the 10 levels of purgatory, I am confident that we can pass the 9th level." 10 levels of purgatory? Yi Fei looked at Dongfang Yu in surprise. "To be honest, Brother Yi, behind the stone door is a test left behind by an expert. There are a total of 10 levels, and each level is guarded by a very dangerous demon beast. It is very similar to the legendary 10 levels of purgatory." As Dongfang Yu spoke, his subordinates pushed open the stone door with force. Suddenly, an otherworldly aura made Yi Fei, Dongfang Yu, and everyone present shiver uncontrollably. What a terrifying aura! Yi Fei's expression turned serious. "This is devil qi. Warriors below the half-saint realm can't resist it. Even if we are half-saints, we still have to be careful. We've already cleared the first 8 floors. However, the magical beast occupying the 9th floor is a Heaven Ascension Stage Level 10 monster. With the strength of my subordinates alone, we're unable to deal with it." As the stone door opened, Dongfang Yu's tone became serious. "A demonic beast in the 10th tier of the heaven-reaching state?" Yi Fei clicked his tongue inwardly. At the same time, he admired Dongfang Yu's courage. As a half-saint, Dongfang Yu dared to challenge a 10th level martial saint. This was a battle that was 10 levels higher than him. No wonder Dongfang Yu wanted to bring so many people with him. Yi Fei still had doubts in his heart. He could not help but ask, since the monsters in this secret realm are so powerful, Brother Dongfang, why don't you join forces with the other rulers? Dongfang Yu did not hide the truth. He shook his head frankly and said, there can only be one best treasure. If other rulers participate, we'll definitely have a conflict. Besides, I don't trust other rulers. Brother Dongfang, you trust me? Yi Fei was a little surprised. I'm confident. You're no match for me now, Dongfang Yu said with a smile. Yi Fei was speechless. Only now did he realize that Dongfang Yu was quite cunning. However, this was human nature. Anyway, he had come here mainly to return a favor to Dongfang Yu. Yi Fei did not particularly care about the treasures. Walking through the stone door, Yi Fei finally saw the full picture of this alien space. There were 10 magnificent ancient cities, which were connected from end to end. Each of the ancient cities emitted an awe-inspiring demonic aura. When the 10 ancient cities joined forces, the majestic aura created a kind of fear that came from the bottom of one's heart. The accompanying young rulers all urged their primordial spirits to resist the invisible shock that shook their souls. Only Dongfang Yu, Yi Fei, and a few other strongest rulers could barely resist the invisible pressure from the ancient cities. After entering the stone door, Dongfang Yu's expression was full of seriousness. Follow my footsteps. We'll rush into the 9th ancient city in one breath. Brother Dongfang, what should I do? Yi Fei took the time to ask. It's very simple. Outside each ancient city, there are demonic beasts guarding it. However, as long as one of us rushes into the ancient city, the demonic beasts will disappear. Therefore, I hope Brother Yi can resist the demonic beasts for 10 breaths of time when I open the gate. They will do their best to cooperate with you. Dongfang Yu pointed to his group of subordinates. Obviously, they had been exploring these ancient cities for a long time and had figured out some tricks to pass through them. 8 of the 10 ancient cities had been cleared by Dongfang Yu. Therefore, it was very smooth. Yi Fei followed the group and passed through 8 ancient cities in one breath. However, when they arrived outside the 9th ancient city, a loud roar suddenly came from the ancient city. Smoke and dust billowed, and the ancient city's ground shook violently. Several gloomy giant snake heads popped out one after another. It's an ancient demonic beast, a hydra. Everyone, be careful. This hydra is a mutant. How many heads it has is how strong it is. Several strongest kings exclaimed together. Yi Fei narrowed his eyes and stared at the huge hydra in front of the city gate. He counted carefully. As expected, this hydra had 10 heads and its strength had reached LV-10 of the reaching heaven realm, which was equivalent to a LV-10, martial saint. Even the young emperors might run away when they encountered such a powerful demonic beast. If Dongfang Yu hadn't found precious treasures in the other 8 cities, he wouldn't have taken the initiative to provoke such a monster. Everyone, gather and form a formation. Strongest kings, each of you will deal with one of the snake heads. The other kings, form groups of 20 and cover for us. I will deal with the other snake heads myself. Brother Yi, wait for my orders. Dongfang Yu kept issuing orders. Facing a LV-10, martial Saint Hydra, these young kings were very calm. Obviously, it wasn't the first time they had fought against a Hydra. The 3 strongest kings of the Fist Emperor City took action immediately and attracted the attention of 3 snake heads. Dongfang Yu attracted the attention of 7 snake heads at the same time. Of course, with the young emperor's potential to fight across 6 levels and Dongfang Yu's cultivation of the half-saint realm, it was difficult for him to deal with 7 snake heads at the same time, but it wasn't impossible. On the contrary, Yi Fei stood aside and watched the battle with nothing to do. He didn't mean to be lazy. On the way here, Dongfang Yu had already discussed the countermeasures with him. First, Dongfang Yu and the others would use all their strength to exhaust the Hydra's pneuma. Then, when the Hydra was weak, Dongfang Yu would suddenly rush to the back of the Hydra and risk opening the city gate. As long as the gate was opened, the Hydra would be no threat. It had to be said that this was a very smart plan. At the same time, Yi Fei was the most important part of this plan. Because when Dongfang Yu avoided the Hydra, he wanted Yi Fei and the 20 young kings behind him to block the remaining 7 heads of the Hydra. Chapter 1052. A bunch of bastards. It was obvious that it was not the first time that the kings of the Fist Emperor City had attacked the 9th ancient city. They were old acquaintances of the 9-headed serpent. Now that this group of reckless humans dared to attack this place, the Hydra's anger had reached a limit. Before the kings of the Fist Emperor City started to attack, the 9-headed serpent went berserk. Its 9 heads spewed out horrible black light at the same time. The light was so horrible that it pierced through the void and left countless burn marks. Facing these light rays, the ordinary kings retreated in fear. They were afraid of being hit by the light rays. After all, this was an attack from a 10th-level martial saint. Even an emperor would be injured if they were hit, let alone a king. At this moment, Dongfang Yu's strategy finally showed its brilliance. Since the 10 heads were attracted by Dongfang Yu and the 3 strongest kings, the 9-headed serpent couldn't kill the ordinary kings on the ground one by one no matter how angry it was. These ordinary kings had the ability to fight opponents who were at least 3 levels higher. They could even display the attack of a martial saint as a half-saint. In this way, even if their attacks were not as powerful as the 9-headed serpent's black light rays, the continuous attacks of hundreds of young kings still caused some damage to the 9-headed serpent. The black scales on the 9-headed serpent's huge body were shattered by the king's attacks. Large amounts of black demon blood sprinkled down from the sky. Roar! The sharp pain in its body made the 9-headed serpent furious. Some of its heads suddenly gave up attacking Dongfang Yu. They were ready to concentrate on killing all the ants on the ground first. Dongfang Yu quickly grasped this flaw and punched out fiercely. The horrible fist radiance scattered a magnificent rainbow light. At this moment, Dongfang Yu was like a giant standing in the sky. His huge fist turned into a lofty mountain, crushing down on the remaining 4 heads of the 9-headed serpent. Yi Fei didn't know until now that Dongfang Yu had been merciful to him in the martial arts practice field of the imperial capital. His full-strength punch was extraordinarily horrible. The enraged 9-headed serpent felt the threat of death looming over it. Even though it was a 10th-level martial sage, it simply couldn't unleash its advantage while being besieged by so many martialists. Therefore, facing Dongfang Yu's fatal punch, the 9-headed serpent had to move its 3 heads back, ready to resist the fist radiance. However, Dongfang Yu didn't mean to fight the 9-headed serpent to death. Instead, under the cover of the lofty mountain, Dongfang Yu glided in the air and disappeared from the 9-headed serpent's eyes instantly. Then, a magnificent city gate appeared in front of Dongfang Yu. After opening the gate, they could enter the 9th ancient city. The 9-headed serpent turned its 10 heads. The 9-headed serpent turned its head, turning of the 9-headed serpent, the serpent of the 9-headed, of the serpent of the serpent. The 9-headed serpent turned its. Brother Yi, it's your turn. Dongfang Yu didn't even look back. He just strode toward the city gate. Great void steps. Yi Fei had been waiting for this moment. Just as Dongfang Yu avoided the 9-headed serpent, Yi Fei tore the void and stood in front of Dongfang Yu. The dazzling purple gold taiji wrapped Yi Fei in an instant. At the same time, there were 3 strongest kings and hundreds of young kings standing beside Yi Fei. They didn't dare to move forward because they weren't sure if Yi Fei could reach the 9-headed serpent's power like the king of fighters. Yi Fei didn't bother to explain. He just used all his strength to push the purple gold taiji to the limit and rushed toward the 9-headed serpent, causing many people to cry out in alarm. The 9-headed serpent also seized this opportunity. 5 of the serpents released light, all aimed at Yi Fei. Rumble! 5 black light beams formed a light column as thick as a bucket. In an instant, Yi Fei was completely submerged. However, in this submerged black light, there was always a purple-gold glimmer. It was as bright and dazzling as a candle in the dark night. Purple-gold Taiji, invulnerable. Yi Fei walked out of the black light. The purple-gold light on his body was so dazzling that many people had the illusion that they were facing an emperor. Even the nine-headed serpent looked at Yi Fei with shock. However, it was the guardian beast of the ninth city. How could it let anyone enter and leave as they wished? The shock only lasted for a moment. The nine-headed hydra's 20 pairs of triangular demonic eyes showed great anger at the same time. At the same time, the 10 heads suddenly bloomed with 10 different colors of light, which made the 3 strongest kings tremble in fear. Not good. That's the nine-headed serpent's strongest 10 wheels demon annihilation. 10 wheels demon annihilation was the nine-headed serpent's innate martial art. The number of heads the nine-headed serpent could spit out different kinds of energy. The nine-headed serpent in front of Yi Fei had 10 heads. In other words, the nine-headed serpent could release 10 different kinds of energy at the same time. Metal force, water force, fire force, earth force, wood force, light force, darkness force, poison force, corrosion force. The nine-headed serpent had never used this kind of energy even when facing the King of Fists, Dongfang Yu. This was also because Yi Fei and Dongfang Yu had joined forces and forced the nine-headed serpent into a corner. In extreme anger, the nine-headed serpent unleashed the nine-headed serpent's innate martial art. In the face of such a powerful martial art, even the 3 strongest kings felt like their legs were cramping, let alone stepping forward to help. A bunch of cheaters. We agreed to block it together, but I ended up going up alone. Yi Fei really wanted to turn around and scold these people. However, he didn't have the time to do so in the face of the nine-headed serpent's innate martial art. The only thing Yi Fei could do was use all his strength and push the purple-gold Taiji to the limit. In an instant, the Taiji circle formed by the purple-gold Taiji expanded from 10 meters to 20 meters. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the nine-headed serpent's 10 rays of light were like 10 huge meteorites, flashing with various kinds of light. They crazily smashed onto Yi Fei's purple-gold Taiji circle, causing the whole Taiji circle to shake violently, as if it would burst like bubbles at any time. Only 7 light balls smashed over, but Yi Fei's purple-gold Taiji circle had shrunk from 20 meters to 2 meters. If it continued like this, the next light ball, the purple-gold Taiji circle would reach its limit and then collapse. At the same time, with a boom, the whole city gate suddenly shook violently. Dongfang Yu clapped his palms, forming 2 huge palms. He pushed forward with all his strength. In the dust and ear-piercing friction, the ancient city gate in front of him was pushed open in an instant. In the ancient city, a huge skeletal palm immediately stretched out, grabbed the violent nine-headed serpent into the air, and squeezed with its bare hands. Chapter 1053. The 10th City. Brother Yi, I was right about you. With your defense and my attack, we really passed the 9th level of purgatory. Dongfang Yu quickly retreated from the city gate. Suddenly, he found that his subordinates were embarrassed. They were not standing with Yi Fei, but were rather far away from him. What happened? When Brother Yi attacked, you guys didn't attack. Dongfang Yu was a young emperor after all. He quickly figured out what had happened. It's not their fault. The Hydra attacked too fast. They couldn't react in time. Hearing Yi Fei's words, many people's faces turned red. They were not only unable to react, they were clearly frightened by the sudden eruption of Hydra's innate martial arts. If Yi Fei was not in front of them, they would have suffered heavy casualties. After coming back to their senses, many people couldn't help but look at Yi Fei with gratitude. Dongfang Yu looked at his subordinates' expressions. If they still didn't understand what had happened, he should kill himself. Brother Yi, I owe you a favor this time. From now on, your business is my business. You can also choose 2 treasures in the city. Dongfang Yu's attitude was very sincere. Originally, even if Yi Fei helped, he could only choose 1 treasure in the city. But in order to compensate, Dongfang Yu decided to let Yi Fei choose 2 treasures. This made Yi Fei a little embarrassed. He could see that although Dongfang Yu's subordinates were a little tricky, they didn't do it on purpose. When the Hydra suddenly used his martial arts, Yi Fei wouldn't have had the guts to rush up and confront the Hydra if he didn't believe in the purple gold Tai Chi striking while the iron is hot. Yi Fei suggested, "Since the 9th city has been opened and we haven't suffered any losses, why don't we open the 10th city as well?" "What? The 10th city?" Whoosh. All the kings present changed their expressions. Dongfang Yu shook his head with a bitter smile. "Brother Yi, the 10th city is guarded by a demi-emperor-level demonic beast. We are just too weak." "A demi-emperor-level demonic beast?" Yi Fei was a little surprised. Then, he became eager to give it a try. Since Purgatory had 10 levels, then the best treasures would definitely be in the last city. Now that the 9th city had been occupied by Dongfang Yu, Yi Fei was more willing to explore the 10th city than to pick up the leftovers. Seeing Yi Fei staring at the 10th city, Dongfang Yu smiled understandingly and said, "Brother Yi, do you want to challenge the 10th city?" "Of course, if Brother Dongfang allows it." Yi Fei didn't hide his intentions. "Brother Yi, you can go anytime." Dongfang Yu was also very open-minded. "It can't be. Young Master Yi is really going to challenge the 10th city? Fist Emperor, why aren't you stopping him?" Yi Fei's actions startled many kings. They thought that Yi Fei had gone crazy. A half-sage was actually provoking a half-emperor. However, Dongfang Yu misunderstood. Brother Yi is probably going there to see the power of a demi-emperor-level demonic beast. He will be back soon. Let's hurry up and find the treasures in the 9th city. The other kings nodded. Their thoughts were similar to Dongfang Yu's. They thought that Yi Fei was just going there to see the power of a demi-emperor-level demonic beast. After all, although Yi Fei's defense was strong, he was not a young emperor. Even someone as strong as the Northern Fist Emperor had to gather the forces of the whole city to enter the 9th city. How could Yi Fei defeat a demi-emperor-level demonic beast and enter the 10th city alone? Dongfang Yu and the other kings were right. When Yi Fei heard that there was a demi-emperor-level demonic beast in the 10th city, he gave up the idea of challenging the 10th city. However, even if Yi Fei couldn't challenge the 10th city, it didn't mean that Xiao Chao couldn't. In fact, when Yi Fei saw that the guardians of the ancient cities were demonic beasts similar to the vicious beasts, a bold idea came to his mind. "I wonder if Xiao Chao's vine whip has any effect on these demonic beasts?" The 9th city was full of people from the Fist Emperor city. Yi Fei didn't dare to let Xiao Chao out. However, the 10th city was different. There was a demi-emperor-level demonic beast guarding the 10th city. Now that everyone had entered the 9th city to search for treasures, Xiao Chao wouldn't be discovered. "Xiao Chao, come out and work." Yi Fei felt that Xiao Chao was too lazy recently. He needed to train her. Following Yi Fei's voice, a chubby Ganoderma girl with pigtails ran out barefooted. The dragon turtle was carrying a large pile of spiritual stones on its back so that Xiao Chao could snack on them. Yi Fei really wanted to kick this damn turtle to death. The dragon turtle wasn't doing this for Xiao Chao. It was doing this for its own convenience. "I really want to slaughter this tortoise and make a stew," Yi Fei thought to himself. The dragon tortoise had already stretched its neck and turned its head to steal the spirit stones on its back. Suddenly, it felt a chill all around it. It had a bad premonition. It quickly stopped stealing and focused on the 10th city in front of it. At this moment, Yi Fei had already stepped into the 10th city's moat. The entire moat started to churn violently. Yi Fei was shocked to discover that this wasn't a moat. It was clearly the giant head of a hydra. The one guarding the 10th city was also a hydra. Furthermore, it was the Emperor of the Hydras, the Hydra Emperor with 11 heads. It is said that once a Hydra has 12 heads, it can break through to the martial Emperor level, as expected of the 10 levels of Purgatory. Even if the 6 martial Emperors attack together, they might not be able to stop such a demonic beast. Luckily, I have a little ancestor who specializes in bullying demonic beasts. Xiao Qiao, it's all up to you. If you perform well, you can eat all the spiritual stones in the beast mark space, Yi Fei said deliberately. With this sentence, Xiao Qiao's eyes became brighter than the stars. She couldn't help but swallow her saliva. Of course, as a girl, Xiao Qiao had to pay attention to her image. She was afraid that Yi Fei would make fun of her. Xiao Qiao resisted the urge to swallow her saliva and patted herself like a little adult. Then, she pointed at the half-emperor Hydra that had appeared and seemed to be saying something. Yi Fei guessed that she was probably telling the Hydra to surrender quickly and not delay Xiao Qiao's time to eat the spiritual stones. However, she was facing the Hydra Emperor. How could it surrender to a little girl so easily? Faced with Xiao Qiao's threat, not only did the Hydra Emperor not listen, it even stared at Xiao Qiao with a greedy gaze. Accompanied by 11 earth-shattering roars, the Hydra Emperor's huge body directly ignored Yi Fei and rushed toward Xiao Qiao crazily. It looked as if it couldn't wait to swallow Xiao Qiao whole. Xiao Qiao was so angry that she pouted her red lips. Her angry look was adorable. Yi Fei didn't even need to do anything. The dragon turtle was already loyal. It rushed to the front and automatically acted as Xiao Qiao's shield. It also roared angrily at the Hydra Emperor. Chapter 1054. Well done. Roar, 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 roar. The roar of the dragon turtle and the 9-headed snake emperor mixed together like thunder in the sky. The terrifying sound waves tore countless cracks in the sky. In the 9th city, all the young king's expressions changed. Strange, we have checked the 10th city before, and there was only one 9-headed snake emperor. Why are there 2 roars now? Could it be that there are not only one demonic beast guarding the 10th city, but 2? A strongest king guessed. This was a major discovery. Even Dongfang Yu looked up at the sky in astonishment. Unfortunately, they had all entered the 9th city. The 10 ancient cities of Purgatory were not accessible at will. Instead, there were restrictions. Everyone only had one chance to enter the city. Once they left, they could not enter again. Although Dongfang Yu vaguely felt that something was wrong, he could not retreat at this time. I hope Brother Yi won't do anything stupid. Dongfang Yu was confident in Yi Fei's strength. He was afraid that Yi Fei would overestimate himself and provoke the 9-headed snake emperor. Dongfang Yu had done such a stupid thing once when he discovered the mystery realm. At that time, one of the strongest kings who followed him was killed by the 9-headed snake emperor in 2 breaths. If Dongfang Yu had not escaped fast enough, he might have died there. After all, it was the 9-headed snake emperor, a demonic beast comparable to a half-emperor expert. No one thought that Yi Fei had the guts to challenge such an existence. Many of the strongest kings were betting on whether Yi Fei could successfully escape from the 9-headed snake emperor's pursuit. Of course, whether it was Dongfang Yu or the strongest kings of the Fist Emperor City, they were all wrong. Not only did Yi Fei not escape, he stood calmly in the same place and commanded Xiao Qiao and the Dragon Turtle to counterattack. Dragon Turtle, it's you. Hurry up and turn into a shield. You must block the 9-headed snake emperor's attack. Don't let Xiao Qiao get hurt. Hearing this, the dragon turtle quickly swallowed all the spiritual stones on its back. Then, it stood up and shrank into its shell. Although the dragon turtle did everything according to Yi Fei's instructions, Yi Fei and Xiao Qiao's faces twitched at the same time when they saw the dragon turtle swallow all the spiritual stones on its back. This damned tortoise actually took advantage of the situation. Roar. The 9-headed snake emperor's 11 heads opened facing the dragon turtle emperor. The dragon turtle was blocked dragon turtle emperor. In an instant, the dragon turtle was completely submerged in it. The dragon turtle let out a miserable cry. It finally tasted the bitter fruit of stealing. Although it successfully blocked all the black demonic light, many cracks still appeared on the dragon turtle's hard shell. This made the dragon turtle's heart ache. As soon as the attack ended, the dragon tortoise quickly retreated and hid behind Xiao Qiao. This was definitely a dog servant who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Yi Fei really wanted to kill this turtle and stew it in soup. Xiao Qiao was also so angry that she stomped the dragon turtle on the ground and was about to ruthlessly trample on it. At this time, the Hydra Emperor saw the opportunity and suddenly rushed over. It opened all 11 of its big mouths and impatiently wanted to tear Xiao Qiao to pieces and eat her. With the Hydra Emperor's strength as a half-martial emperor, it could obviously see that Xiao Qiao was the incarnation of a spiritual being of heaven and earth. As long as it devoured Xiao Qiao, it might be able to immediately grow 12 heads and break through to the martial emperor realm. It would then be able to break free from the damned ancient city of Purgatory's control. Xiao Qiao, be careful. Use your vine whip. Yi Fei was addicted to commanding and suddenly said this. Then he scratched his head and felt that these words sounded a little familiar. However, before he could recall, Xiao Qiao jumped up angrily when he saw that the dragon turtle was injured. He waved the vine whip in his hand and lashed it out. Puff! The green vine whip accurately hit the 9-headed snake emperor's body. The 9-headed snake emperor immediately let out a miserable shriek. It felt that Xiao Qiao's whip didn't hit its head, but rather its soul. The intense pain caused the 9-headed snake emperor's entire body to curl into a ball. At the same time, the 9-headed snake emperor's cultivation dropped from the half-martial emperor realm to the 10th stage of heaven ascension realm. However, even at the 10th stage of heaven ascension realm, it was still a terrifying expert comparable to a 10th stage martial saint. Seeing that the vine whip was effective against demonic beasts, Yi Fei didn't dare to give the 9-headed snake emperor a chance to turn the situation around. He quickly continued to order, Xiao Qiao, continue to use your vine whip. Pa pa pa. Xiao Qiao obediently waved his whip. Layers of whip shadows continuously lashed the 9-headed snake emperor's curled body. At this time, the 9-headed snake emperor finally discovered its fatal weakness. It was too big. Even if Xiao Qiao were to close his eyes and randomly hit it, he would still be able to accurately hit its body. The 9-headed snake emperor, which was incomparably ferocious just a moment ago, immediately let out an extremely terrified scream. It discovered that every time Xiao Qiao lashed it with his whip, its cultivation would drop by a level. When Xiao Qiao lashed out 10 times with his whip, the pitiful 9-headed snake emperor had already dropped from the half-martial emperor realm to the 1st stage of heaven ascension realm by Xiao Qiao. If Xiao Qiao wasn't tired from lashing out with his whip, the 9-headed snake emperor probably wouldn't even be able to retain its strength as a martial saint. Roar! Like the dragon turtle, the 9-headed snake emperor, who was whipped, was dumbfounded on the spot. It had already been whipped by Xiao Qiao to the point where it doubted its life as a snake. The dragon turtle also sympathized with the 9-headed snake emperor's bitter experience. Not long ago, it had also been whipped by Xiao Qiao to the point where it doubted its life as a turtle. Fortunately, it had still managed to endure those miserable days. Now, the dragon turtle was very willing to build the 9-headed snake emperor's pain on top of its happiness. It reckoned that under Xiao Qiao's whip, the 9-headed snake emperor would no longer be able to cause any trouble. The dragon turtle suddenly changed from its previous cowardice. Baxia! The dragon turtle let out a loud roar and turned back into a ferocious demon the size of a mountain. The aura all over its body became even more majestic and awe-inspiring. Then, the dragon turtle raised its leg and stomped down on the nine-headed snake emperor that was about to be beaten to death. The pitiful nine-headed snake emperor, a grand half-martial emperor realm demonic beast, was trampled to death by a little turtle that it had never placed in its eyes. Even until its death, the nine-headed snake emperor's heart was still filled with grievances. At the same time that it killed the nine-headed snake emperor, the dragon turtle nimbly dug out all 11 of the nine-headed snake emperor's beast cores and ate them. Roar! After eating the beast cores, the dragon turtle's aura became 5 times stronger than before. At the same time, the dragon turtle's realm rose from Heaven Completion Realm LV1 to Heaven Completion Realm LV5 like a rocket. Yi Fei and Xiao Qiao were speechless. They had been busy for half a day, but the one who reaped the benefits in the end was this lackey turtle. Fortunately, the dragon turtle was tactful. After increasing its strength, it immediately turned small and wanted to come over to ask for a reward. Xiao Qiao, well done. Yi Fei basically ignored the dragon turtle. He just carried Xiao Qiao up and kissed her little face. Xiao Qiao also raised her head proudly and smiled happily. Realizing that it was completely ignored, the dragon turtle could only silently move to the side with tears in its eyes. At the same time that the nine-headed snake emperor was killed, the giant skeletal hand that Yi Fei was most interested in appeared in the sky again. Yi. There was only one thought in his mind. I can't let anything happen to Xiao Qiao. Xiao Qiao, use your vine whip to wrap around me. No matter who was behind the giant skeletal hand, he could not watch Xiao Qiao get taken away. Squeak! After Yi Fei's reminder, Xiao Qiao no longer panicked. She quickly lengthened her vine whip and wrapped it around Yi Fei's body. Battle demon power! His muscles and bones twisted like 2 taut crossbows. Yi Fei stood on the ground. His eyes were red. Like a mad bull, he used all his strength to pull the vine whip. He wanted to pull the giant skeletal hand down from the sky. The dragon tortoise also came to help. It bit Yi Fei's trousers and supported itself on the ground with its 4 limbs. It tried its best to enlarge itself like a weight nailed to the ground. But the giant skeletal hand was too strong. Yi Fei and the dragon tortoise's efforts only stopped the giant skeletal hand for half a breath. There was a loud boom. The giant skeletal hand suddenly exerted its strength and pulled Xiao Qiao, Yi Fei, and the dragon tortoise into the empty space in the sky. In the empty space, the heavy sound of a stone door closing could be heard. The tremors of heaven and earth gradually disappeared. In the 9th city, Dongfang Yu led a group of subordinates to search for treasures in the city. He did not notice the appearance of the giant skeletal hand in the sky, nor did he find anything unusual. The giant skeletal hand dragged Yi Fei into the stone door and disappeared with Xiao Qiao. Yi Fei was shocked to find that he had been dragged into a black demonic palace. The dragon tortoise cautiously leaned against Yi Fei's feet. The 7-colored light on its back gradually brightened and illuminated the demonic palace. Yi Fei carefully observed the demonic palace and found that there were many statues of gods and demons. There were gods, demons, sorcerers, and monsters. On the ground there were piles of bones. Many of them had turned into white dust. In the middle of the dust there were many fragments of weapons. All of them were made of emperor weapon embryos. In other words, all the skeletons that died here were most likely martial emperors, or even higher. Where is this place? Where is Xiao Qiao? Where is Xiao Qiao? Dragon Tortoise, help me sense Xiao Qiao's location. Yi Fei was terrified to find that his divine consciousness was useless in this demonic palace. He could not even open his eye of thunder punishment. There was a mysterious force in the demonic palace that suppressed him. Only the 7-colored light on the dragon tortoise's back could illuminate the surroundings. Therefore, Yi Fei picked up the dragon tortoise and ran wildly into the depths of the demonic palace with the help of the light. Xiao Qiao, where are you? Answer me. Squeak! Xiao Qiao's faint voice came from the depths of the demonic palace. Hearing this voice, Yi Fei's eyes turned red. I don't care who you are. If you dare to hurt Xiao Qiao, I will kill you. Bang! Following Xiao Qiao's voice, Yi Fei kicked open the huge palace door in front of him. Inside was an even more spacious and magnificent palace. However, the ground was covered with skeletons that emitted a strange light. These skeletons had the heads of humans and the bodies of demons. Some had the heads of beasts and the bodies of humans. Some had wings, some were covered in scales, some had divine horns, and some were as tall as giants. However, without exception, they were all dead. No one knew how many tens of thousands of years they had been dead. The ground and the walls were filled with the marks of swords and axes. Much of the blood had not dried up and was emitting a mysterious light. Even the passage of time could not erase it. However, Yi Fei was not concerned about this. What he was most concerned about was still Xiao Qiao. Xiao Qiao was in the middle of these skeletons. There was a mysterious staircase with 12 levels. Around the staircase were 12 skeletons of divine dragons that were larger than mountains. These were real divine dragons. Every adult divine dragon had the strength of a martial emperor. Broken chains and reins were wrapped around their bodies. Yi Fei was shocked to discover that these 12 martial emperor divine dragons might have been coolies who pulled carriages when they were alive. Yi Fei also saw a huge golden chariot in the middle of the skeletons of the divine dragons. At this moment, Xiao Qiao was imprisoned in the chariot. Yi Fei heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Xiao Qiao was fine. However, his expression soon became serious again. Not only was Xiao Qiao on the golden chariot, there was also a white-boned sovereign king wearing a 9-patterned divine robe. Chapter 1056. Human Demon, you know me? Yi Fei was shocked. The white-boned sovereign's voice sounded familiar to him. He seemed to have heard this voice somewhere before. Of course I know you. Once, I gave you a chance to live in eternal glory. Unfortunately, you refused. The white-boned sovereign's voice was sacred, but it was also filled with endless killing intent. It was a very strange feeling, which made Yi Fei feel so uncomfortable that he almost wanted to vomit blood. At the same time, there was an explosion in his mind, and a mysterious voice vaguely appeared. Help me see the light of day again, and I will grant you eternal glory. It's you. You are the great Emperor Wang Qing, the demon who used his life to suppress. It was you who dug out the Tombkeeper's spiritual eye. It was also you who lured me to let you out. Yi Fei was extremely shocked. No wonder he felt that the stone door was very familiar. It turned out that the stone door he saw was the one suppressed in the tomb of the great Emperor Wang Qing. However, that stone door was clearly in the northern region. Why would it appear in the burial ground of the gods in the central region? Could it be? Suddenly, Yi Fei thought of an extremely terrifying possibility. You are the burial ground of the gods, the buried martial god. Martial god? Haha, do you think I am one of those idiots? More than a dozen martial gods joined forces and still couldn't kill me. They are all trash. Strictly speaking, this burial ground of the gods is their burial ground. The white-boned sovereign shook his head, his voice filled with disappointment. Cold sweat rolled down Yi Fei's back when he heard this. Martial gods were immortal and could be reborn with a drop of blood. They were immortal and indestructible. However, more than a dozen martial gods couldn't do anything to the white-boned sovereign. Could this person be an earthly venerable? Or a legendary heavenly venerable? No wonder that giant skeletal hand was so terrifying. No wonder thousands of martial emperors joined forces to barely resist that giant skeletal hand. However, this was not the most important thing. I don't care if you're an earthly venerable or a celestial venerable. Come at me. Who are you? Why do you want to capture Xiao Qiao? Yi Fei strode forward. He decided to throw caution to the wind. He could not let anything happen to Xiao Qiao. Seeing Yi Fei walking towards the golden chariot, Xiao Qiao suddenly became anxious. She babbled and gestured constantly, telling Yi Fei to ignore her and run away quickly. As if he didn't see it, Yi Fei walked coldly to the front of the golden chariot. He wanted to rush up, but the white bone sovereign's aura was too strong. It was like the heavenly Tao, suppressing Yi Fei until he couldn't breathe. However, Yi Fei didn't retreat. He endured the pain that was about to collapse and stared coldly at the white bone sovereign. Let Xiao Qiao go. I'm willing to exchange my life for Xiao Qiao's. Xiao Qiao was stunned. Suddenly, a series of sparkling tears rolled down from her eyes like pearls. She struggled even harder and hit the light shield of the golden chariot with all her strength. She wanted to rush out and return to Yi Fei's side. The white bone sovereign suddenly stretched out his hand and patted Xiao Qiao's head gently. Xiao Qiao's struggle immediately stopped, and her body fell softly on the chariot. Yi Fei's eyes instantly turned red. He suddenly became furious. Like an angry lion, he jumped up and slashed at the golden chariot with his sword. What did you do to Xiao Qiao? If anything happens to Xiao Qiao, I'll kill you even if I become a ghost. Humph, I'm a human demon. If I want you to die, you won't even have a soul left, let alone a ghost. However, she's just a transformed Ganoderma. Strictly speaking, she's no different from the chickens and ducks you eat. Why don't you eat her? Do you know how great the benefits you'll get once you eat her? The white bone sovereign was a little curious. These words undoubtedly ignited Yi Fei's gunpowder keg. He couldn't help but roar angrily, "Shut up! I don't care what Xiao Qiao is. I only know that she's my companion. She's worth protecting with my life. Even if you're an earthly venerable, if you dare to hurt Xiao Qiao, I'll take your life." Knowing that his strength was definitely not the white bone sovereign's, Yi Fei's eyes suddenly flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. He decided to go all out. His only hope now was the undying sword soul in his body. Are you really willing to give up your life for a little girl transformed from a Ganoderma? Madman, you're really a madman. People used to say that I, the human demon, was crazy, but you're crazier than me. The supreme power allowed the white bone sovereign to easily distinguish whether Yi Fei was telling the truth or not. At this time, the white bone sovereign's sacred aura disappeared, and the ferocious demonic flames emerged from his body again. Strangely, the white bone sovereign's tone was full of compassion. I won't hurt this little girl for the time being. However, her life is in your hands. Don't you want to save her? I can give you a chance. You want me to let you out? Yi Fei's expression changed. The tomb keeper once said that the stone door sealed a demonic creature. Once it was released, it would destroy the entire northern region. How could he take such a risk? Seeing through Yi Fei's thoughts at a glance, the white bone sovereign's face was full of sarcasm. You can forget about breaking the seal of the stone door even if you cultivate for 1,000 years. However, you're an ordinary person. I'm very surprised that you can integrate the power of despair twice. How about this, if you can integrate the power of despair for the third time in front of me, I'll let you and this little girl go. What do you think? What, you want me to integrate the power of despair? Yi Fei was shocked. Every time he integrated the power of despair, he would experience a heavenly tribulation. Moreover, he was not prepared to deal with the heavenly tribulation at this time. He might die on the spot if he integrated the power of despair for the third time. However, looking at the unconscious Xiao Qiao and the white bone sovereign's extremely cold eyes, Yi Fei smiled bitterly. He knew that even if he completely released the undying sword soul, He might not be able to kill the White Bone Sovereign. After all, this was a terrifying existence that even a dozen martial gods couldn't kill. Perhaps, the White Bone Sovereign's condition was really his only chance to save Xiao Qiao. Thinking of this, Yi Fei no longer hesitated and nodded. Okay, let go of Xiao Qiao first. I'll start the integration immediately. You want to play tricks with me? If I let her go, what if you escape on the spot? If you want to save her, you have to cultivate this complete battle demon art first. I'll let her go immediately. A golden page suddenly flew out of the golden chariot. Yi Fei picked it up and looked at it. It was a complete cultivation method of the battle demon power. It was many times more exquisite than the Devil Emperor scripture. It was also a cultivation method that he dreamed of getting. In the end, the White Bone Sovereign passed the cultivation method to him so easily? Could there be some conspiracy in this? Yi Fei didn't dare to cultivate it easily. He continued to stare coldly at the White Bone Sovereign and said, I still have the same words. Let go of Xiao Qiao and I'll cultivate it. Hearing that Yi Fei still wanted to negotiate with him at this time, the White Bone Sovereign's eyes became colder and colder. A pale white bone flame appeared on his white bone finger and gently floated on Xiao Qiao's body. The unconscious Xiao Qiao suddenly frowned in pain. The green leaves all over her body began to wither and turn yellow at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chapter 1057. Another heavenly tribulation. Cultivate, I'll cultivate, all right? Yi Fei's eyes were burning with anger. Seeing Xiao Qiao in pain, he really wanted to charge into the golden chariot and tear the White Bone Emperor to pieces. Unfortunately, he couldn't be impulsive. He had to follow the White Bone Emperor's wishes and think of a way to save Xiao Qiao from the hands of this savage human demon. I, the war demon ancestor. Enter the Tao through battle, become supreme through battle. What is battle? Not attack but battle. As long as life is not extinguished, battle will not stop. Yi Fei opened the golden page and realized that the war demon Tao wasn't simple. It was actually a cultivation technique personally passed down by the war demon ancestor. It was the highest level cultivation technique for cultivating the power of the war demon. Like the war god Tao, the war demon Tao was also divided into two parts. Once one reached the 10th level of the war demon, they could condense the true war demon body. Their physical defense would be invincible. So that's how it is. The Demon Emperor's Master's Demon Emperor Sutra deduced the first 9 levels based on the incomplete war demon Tao. It's a pity that the Demon Emperor didn't have the ability to continue deducing the 10th level. That's why there are only 9 levels of the Demon Emperor Sutra. The White Bone Emperor was right in front of him. Yi Fei didn't dare to casually expose the secret of the undying Sword Soul. This time, he didn't use the Sword Soul to increase his comprehension. He comprehended it with his own strength. Fortunately, Yi Fei had already cultivated the Battle God's Way, the Immortal Emperor's Scripture, the Demon Emperor's Scripture, and many other scriptures and classics. His knowledge was no longer the weak young man from Blackrock City. Therefore, Yi Fei was able to comprehend the Battle God's Way very quickly. Soon, Yi Fei completely comprehended the essence of the war demon Tao. Boom! Immersed in comprehension, the true yuan of the Demon Emperor Sutra in Yi Fei's body unknowingly transformed into the purest war demon true yuan. When his flesh and blood were filled with pure war demon true yuan, Yi Fei immediately felt that every piece of flesh and even every cell in his body was emitting a dazzling light. A single cell is a star. There were tens of millions of cells in the human body, and the number of stars in the body was also tens of millions. When these powers hidden in the cells were combined and condensed into a rope, it would be the purest power in the universe. War demon's power. Strength was invincible. Strength was invincible. Strength was absolute. No, strength was not absolute. No matter how strong one's strength was, it was still brute force. Only attacks formed by combat skills, profound meanings, and principles were the strongest. Attacking was absolute. His head was about to explode. The war demon worshipped strength and abandoned all martial arts. Azura worshipped martial arts and despised brute force without skill. Yi Fei finally realized the terrible consequences of cultivating the war demon Dao and the Azura Dao at the same time. These two cultivation methods were like fire and water. One advocated strength and the other advocated skill. These two cultivation methods could never be unified. The war demon and the Azura Dao had always been mortal enemies. But at the same time, if I can master supreme strength and supreme skill at the same time, then I will be invincible. I will be one of the strongest martial gods in the world. Enduring the intense pain, Yi Fei's heart flashed with ruthlessness. He had to be ruthless to his enemies, but he could be even more ruthless to himself. Since these two powers were not unified, then he would fuse them together and condense them into a new power. Power of despair, condense for me. Yi Fei let out a deep roar. It was filled with determination and anger. At this moment, he finally understood why the White Bone Monarch wanted him to cultivate the War Demon Dao immediately. Once he grasped the War Demon Dao and the War God Dao at the same time, these two powers would immediately clash in his body. If he did not want to suffer a backlash and go berserk, there was only one way. He had to immediately fuse these two powers. Human demon, you win. I have no choice but to fuse them for the third time. You have achieved your goal. Quickly release Xiao Qiao. Yi Fei roared. Following his roar, heaven and earth shook. A huge vortex appeared in the void. It was like a cold eye that stared at Yi Fei mercilessly. That was the eye of the heavenly Dao. It was also the wrath of the heavenly Dao. The power of despair was not tolerated by the heavenly Dao. Any warrior who tried to fuse with the power of despair would be destroyed by the heavenly Dao. At this moment, Yi Fei had the opportunity to activate the true Spirit 9 transformations to hide his aura and deceive the heavenly Dao's gaze. However, Yi Fei did not do so. He endured the backlash of the two cultivation methods in his body. His eyes only stared coldly at the White Bone Monarch. The White Bone Monarch also stared coldly at Yi Fei. The pale white bone fire that enveloped Xiao Qiao did not extinguish. Instead, it formed a fire cage that locked Xiao Qiao up. I've said it before. Her fate is in your hands. You have one day to pass this heavenly tribulation. If you pass, I'll let you leave. If you fail, not only will you die, she will die as well. Human demon, F***ck your ancestors. Yi Fei suddenly jumped up like a raging lion. He used all his strength to try to pounce on the Golden War Chariot. Without any preparation, how could he survive the third heavenly tribulation? Since he was going to die anyway, he might as well drag this human demon down with him. Of course, before he died, he had to think of a way to save Xiao Qiao. Blackie, do it! Roar! With the help of Yi Fei's comprehension of the battle demon Dao, the dragon turtle once again turned into a palm-sized 7-colored turtle and secretly climbed to the shaft of the war chariot. The dragon turtle was confident that as long as it bit Xiao Qiao, even if it was a green leaf, it would be able to travel 100 miles in an instant and escape with Xiao Qiao. Naive! If you weren't already of the demon race, I would have turned you into ashes. The White Bone Monarch raised his palm. The entire Golden War Chariot suddenly burned like the sun. The 12 bone dragons woke up at the same time. They let out a silent roar that shook the space. As the monarch, I draw a prison. Boom! A huge white bone palm fell from the sky and actually split the entire demonic palace into 2 different worlds. On the left side of the demonic palace was the White Bone Monarch's imposing figure on the Golden War Chariot. Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle all fell into his huge bone palm. On the right side of the demonic palace, the heavenly Tao was furious. The tribulation clouds took shape and a series of terrifying lightning turned into endless threads that fell from the sky. In an instant they surrounded Yi Fei. Boom! Without giving Yi Fei any time to prepare, the first heavenly tribulation fell mercilessly. The falling threads of lightning quickly turned into endless electric arcs and wrapped around Yi Fei. Get out of my way! It wasn't easy to cooperate with the dragon turtle to create an opportunity to save Xiao Chao, but it was easily resolved by the white bone monarch. Yi Fei bit his lip until it bled. But no matter how angry he was, it was useless. At this time, the heavenly tribulation had already descended. Even the true Spirit 9 transformations could no longer hide his aura. There were only two paths in front of Yi Fei. Either he transcended the tribulation or he died with Xiao Chao. Then Yi Fei couldn't help but shiver. Chapter 1058. Life and Death. No, I can't let Xiao Chao die. I must survive this heavenly tribulation. Kill. Yi Fei's dejected expression suddenly turned crazy. As if he had gone mad, he charged straight into the sky towards the tribulation clouds. If other warriors saw this, they would be scared out of their wits. Yi Fei's actions were no different from looking down on the heavenly Tao. Boom! The heavenly Tao was enraged. The strands of lightning suddenly turned into a huge net of lightning that suddenly tightened. Yi Fei's tiny figure was like a fish struggling in the water under the power of the heavenly tribulation. Soon, he would be completely annihilated by the boundless lightning. There was terrifying lightning everywhere. Within the demon hall, countless skeletons were completely reduced to ashes. But amidst the flying ashes, there was a loud roar of a sword. The tightened lightning net suddenly broke. Yi Fei turned his body into a sword. His cold and merciless sword light quickly tore apart the surrounding lightning. Of course, Yi Fei also paid a heavy price for this. His clothes were torn to shreds by the lightning. His entire body was black like a charcoal ball. Before he could even take a breath, countless lightning pillars appeared in the heavenly tribulation the moment the lightning net broke. Just as Yi Fei was prepared to receive these lightning pillars, the lightning suddenly changed form and turned into the heavenly tribulation of water and fire. Half of the lightning turned into flowing lightning water. It was like the Milky Way pouring down in torrential rain. The other half of the lightning tore through the sky. The intense lightning struck out terrifying flames, forming balls of terrifying flames that rumbled down towards the ground. Purple gold taiji. Yi Fei's sword could not withstand these two different heavenly tribulations at the same time. All he could do was activate his primordial spirit as much as he could to form the strongest defense to protect himself. The Taiji sphere, which was 20 meters wide, perfectly protected Yi Fei. Boom! Rolling waves of lightning crashed down, turning all the fiend god statues in the Devil Hall into small and smooth round stones. Only the sphere formed by the purple gold Taiji did not move. It was like a reef in the water, allowing the water to wash over it. Boom! Seeing that the lightning could not destroy Yi Fei, the blazing lightning fire suddenly burned fiercely in all directions. The terrifyingly high temperature caused the ground to melt. The rocks turned into lava and the ground turned into mud. Yi Fei's feet were firmly stuck in the mud. The radiance of the purple gold Tai Chi was quickly extinguished, and a blazing golden radiance radiated from Yi Fei's body. It made Yi Fei's body look like it was made of gold as it continued to resist the fierce flames. Bang! The battle demon golden body was unable to withstand the burning of the thunder fire. Dense cracks appeared on Yi Fei's body, but soon countless fine scales grew out from these cracks, once again protecting Yi Fei's body. Crack! The temperature of the lightning fire was too terrifying. The scales formed from beast marks melted from the heat. Soon, Yi Fei felt intense pain all over his body. His body was charred. Following that, the tribulation clouds spun. Within the vortex, a strong lightning wind blew. The wind was extremely terrifying. It blew away the water and fire, as well as everything in the demon hall. All the buildings, including the bricks and tiles, were silently reduced to ashes after the lightning wind blew. Oh no, this is the wind tribulation. The heavenly tribulations are too ruthless. This is only my third time fusing with the power of despair. Yi Fei's face was filled with despair. Faced with the omnipresent lightning wind, Yi Fei could only try his best to dodge. But no matter how fast he dodged, there was still a lightning wind that gently blew past Yi Fei's arm. Without a sound, Yi Fei's arm turned to ashes and disappeared before his eyes. The intense pain nearly caused Yi Fei to faint. But his battle instincts made Yi Fei react instantly. The power of undying in his body began to circulate rapidly. The arm that he had lost began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the injuries on his body began to heal. Just as Yi Fei thought that the heavenly tribulations were over, he could heave a sigh of relief. Boom! The heavenly tribulations did not disappear. The vortex in the sky became even larger. Whoosh! Countless lightning chains suddenly wrapped around Yi Fei's neck, arms, and legs while he was healing. Within the vortex, the rumbling of hooves could be heard. 5 creatures that were neither dragons nor horses appeared. They were formed from lightning and held their heads high. They were coldly distributed in 5 different directions around Yi Fei. Their bodies were also wrapped in lightning chains. 5 lightnings dismemberment tribulation. Looking at the dragon horses and the chains that wrapped around his neck and limbs, Yi Fei's face was filled with bitterness and despair. The 5 lightnings dismemberment tribulation was something that only evil demons could encounter. It was a tribulation that was almost certain to kill him. How could he encounter it? The heavenly Tao really thinks highly of me. Yi Fei smiled bitterly. At this moment, his arm had completely recovered. However, the inner yuan in his body was almost depleted. He no longer had the ability to withstand the terrifying 5 lightnings dismemberment tribulation. Dong! 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 The rumbling of hooves could be heard from the sky. When the 5 dragon horses realized that Yi Fei had been bound by the chains, they quickly galloped in different directions. Each of them was extremely strong and could easily pull up a mountain. Yi Fei was instantly pulled apart. He was spread out. He desperately tried to retract his limbs and lower his head, but it was useless. The dragon horses were too strong. After being ravaged by the heavenly tribulations a few times, Yi Fei had become extremely weak. This was the first time that Yi Fei felt a strong fear of death. I'm not afraid of death, but I can't let Xiao Qiao die with me. Xiao Qiao. In his mind, the image of Xiao Qiao smiling despite being hungry appeared. He thought of Xiao Qiao plucking her green leaves to heal him more than once. He thought of Xiao Qiao's anxious face when she was caught and constantly gestured for him to escape. Yi Fei's heart was suddenly filled with an indescribable power. Xiao Qiao, who was originally in a deep sleep, suddenly burst into tears. She was no longer in a deep sleep. Instead, she tried very hard to open her heavy eyes. Then, Xiao Qiao saw the scene outside. Yi Fei was restrained by the 5 dragon horses and was about to be dismembered. Xiao Qiao's face suddenly surged with great anger. She anxiously rushed toward Yi Fei. However, a figure quickly blocked Xiao Cao's path. You can't go. If you don't become a martial god, you will eventually be an ant. With your status, why would you hurt yourself for an ant? The white bone monarch coldly flicked his finger. A large expanse of pale white bone flames blocked Xiao Qiao's path. No, Yi Fei was not an ant. Yi Fei was the person closest to Xiao Qiao. The person he loved the most. The most important person. Xiao Qiao squeaked and squeaked. Then, she mustered up her courage and fiercely rushed into the tragic bone fire. The bone flames quickly set Xiao Qiao ablaze. A large expanse of green leaves turned yellow. However, Xiao Qiao did not seem to feel it. She just tried very hard to run forward. She tried very hard to reach out her gradually burning little hand to Yi Fei. Xiao Qiao's hand was holding the only green leaf on her body. Chapter 1059. The profound meaning of life and death. The white bone monarch looked on coldly. He had already drawn a circle and isolated this space. No matter how hard Xiao Qiao tried, she couldn't pass through this space and enter the space where Yi Fei was. Tears rolled down Xiao Qiao's face like a raging flood. The burning of the bone fire made Xiao Qiao's pale face contort in pain for the first time. However, Xiao Qiao still ran forward. She ran very hard. She wanted to run to Yi Fei's side. She wanted to save Yi Fei. No matter how painful it was, Xiao Qiao still held the only green leaf in her hand tightly. This was the green leaf that could save Yi Fei. Xiao Qiao, you can't give up. At this time, the 5 dragon horses formed by the lightning tribulations had already started to run wildly. They stepped on the thunder clouds and lightning wrapped around their bodies. They let out thunderous roars. The dragon horses ran wildly in 5 different directions. Their enormous strength seemed to tear this space into pieces. Pull! Yi Fei stretched out his limbs. The muscles on his arms twisted like terrifying springs. They were like crossbows that were fully drawn. His hands, legs, and neck exerted force at the same time. He tried his best to retract them. He actually managed to resist the dragon horses' pull bit by bit. But this was far from enough. The dragon horses were too strong. Perhaps in a few breaths' time, or even less, he would lose this strength and be torn apart by the dragon horses. Vaguely, in Yi Fei's mind, which was about to faint from the pain, came Xiao Cao's anxious voice. Yi Fei's despairing eyes suddenly became crazed. I can't admit defeat. Xiao Qiao's life is in my hands. I'm not fighting alone. Xiao Qiao is by my side. I have the sword spirit in my body. Undying sword spirit, help me! With life and death in front of him, Yi Fei no longer cared if he would expose his invincible sword soul. He gave up on suppressing his dantian. Within Yi Fei's dantian, a destructive aura suddenly awakened within his body. Then, Yi Fei felt that the undying sword soul was actually exuding a kind of excitement and agitation within the heavenly tribulation. Boom! The sword spirit vibrated. Whale absorbs water. Yi Fei was shocked to find that the invincible sword soul was actually absorbing the tribulation energy around him. The destructive tribulation energy was absorbed by the invincible sword soul just like that, and then turned into drops of purple lightning liquid that were sent into Yi Fei's body. The lightning liquid was filled with the power of the heavenly tribulation. However, this power was no longer destruction, but rebirth. Yes, Yi Fei's charred body was reborn after absorbing the power of the heavenly tribulation. Spring had come upon a withered tree. Was it destruction, or was it rebirth? The heavenly tribulation had always represented destruction and death. However, at this moment, Yi Fei could feel the inexplicable vitality contained within the heavenly tribulation through his undying sword soul. What was going on? Vaguely, Yi Fei felt that he had grasped something. However, before he could figure it out, there was a loud boom. Yi Fei felt that his body was about to be torn apart. The 5 draconic horses had started to exert their strength. If he didn't want to die, he had to fight back. Pull! Yi Fei's eyes were resolute. With the invincible sword soul absorbing the power of the heavenly tribulation to repair his body, Yi Fei instantly felt that his body was filled with boundless power. Without waiting for the draconic horses to tear his body apart, Yi Fei exerted his strength with his right arm and pulled with all his might. The lightning draconic horses that could pull down mountains were actually pulled back by Yi Fei's crazy lightning. At this moment, Yi Fei was like a crazy war demon. he exploded with boundless brute force and similarly pulled back the lightning draconic horses. This scene was extremely terrifying. It was as if Yi Fei wasn't pulling back 5 draconic horses, but 5 terrifying mountains. They were pulled back by Yi Fei's brute force and destroyed by his combat strength. Kill. With a thought, Yi Fei suddenly activated the Undying Emperor's scripture and used the Deathmatch Fist. In a single breath, Yi Fei actually sent out 5 resplendent fist radiants. However, it was different from the Undying Force from before. The Deathmatch Fist now gave Yi Fei the feeling that it wasn't just death, but it was also filled with boundless vitality. Perhaps this was the true Deathmatch Fist. Death wasn't the end of life. Destruction could also be the beginning of life. The realm of the living and the dead. Boom. Yi Fei's fist aura vibrated. When he unintentionally comprehended this principle, Yi Fei's undying fist aura suddenly underwent an inexplicable change. It became a very unique energy that was integrated into the Deathmatch Fist. Kill. Yi Fei sent out a punch that was filled with vitality. However, it immediately tore a draconic horse into pieces. Kill. Yi Fei's face was filled with killing intent. He suddenly released a thick aura of death and quickly turned another draconic horse into ashes. Kill. The 3rd draconic horse died under Yi Fei's fist. Kill. The 4th draconic horse also couldn't escape the fate of death. Kill. The 5th draconic horse let out a final neigh and also died under Yi Fei's Deathmatch Fist. In the end, a huge fist radiance that was filled with vitality and a tragic aura of death shot into the sky. Boom. Even the heavenly tribulation couldn't withstand the Deathmatch Fist's Deathmatch Fist. Life and death were completely in the hands of Yi Fei. If he wanted the heavenly tribulation to be destroyed, the heavenly tribulation had to be destroyed. What was even more frightening was that the destructive energy of the heavenly tribulation didn't disappear. Chapter 1060. Sinner. Yi Fei was completely enraged by Xiao Cao's encounter. He rushed towards the golden war chariot without any hesitation. Boom! The life and death fist carried the miraculous trajectory of life and death as it smashed into the giant skeletal hand on the chariot. The dragon turtle was still trapped in the giant hand, unable to move. Do you hate me? The White Bone Emperor didn't make a move. He just looked coldly at Yi Fei. I hate you. I wish I could take your life. Why did you hurt Xiao Cao? Come at me. Yi Fei kept punching, causing the void to explode, forming meteors of death that drowned the golden chariot. But at this moment, the 12 martial Emperor Bone Dragons roared at the same time. They raised their heads and roared, raising their huge dragon claws high. They easily destroyed all of Yi Fei's attacks. It couldn't be helped. The gap between the two sides was too big. Even though Yi Fei had comprehended the profound meaning of life and death, he was still no match for the White Bone Emperor. He couldn't even get close to the golden chariot. Let go of the dragon turtle and Xiao Cao. I'll let you do whatever you want with me. Yi Fei retreated helplessly. He looked at the White Bone Emperor with a hint of hatred. Xiao Cao also hid behind Yi Fei pitifully. He looked anxiously at the dragon turtle in the White Bone Emperor's hand. You're raising this dragon turtle? The White Bone Emperor no longer looked at Xiao Cao coldly. Instead, there was a hint of surprise. Xiao Cao nodded. The White Bone Emperor flipped his palm and the dragon turtle flew out. It landed steadily in Xiao Cao's hand. At the same time, a golden page floated in front of Yi Fei. Yi Fei, this is the complete battle demon Dao. Since you've successfully integrated the power of despair for the 3rd time, you're qualified to possess it. However, I'll only give you 100 years. After 100 years, either you become a martial god and come to the land of buried gods to kill me, or I'll kill you and everyone related to you, including her. The White Bone King pointed at Xiao Cao. His finger exuded a strange magical power, and with a ray of light in the air, Xiao Chao's injuries were healed, and his little face became rosy. Xiao Chao looked at her fair and tender hands in amazement. Then, she looked at the green leaves all over her body and tugged at the dragon turtle's tail with all her might. She wondered if she was dreaming. Seeing that Xiao Chao was fine, Yi Fei let out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, he understood that the humanoid demon might not have wanted to hurt Xiao Chao at all. The humanoid demon had only done this to force him to fuse with the power of despair. Human demon. Senior, why do you want me to kill you? How can you become a martial god in 100 years? If that's the case, you might as well kill me now. Yi Fei was very depressed. A 100-year martial god? This joke wasn't funny at all. In the current Sky Martial continent, a martial emperor had not appeared for 10,000 years, let alone a martial god. Could this human demon be a madman? Yi Fei and Xiao Chao were very suspicious. The White Bone King also saw through Yi Fei's thoughts at a glance. He couldn't help but sneer. I'm not crazy, and I never joke. Is 100 years a short time? You must know that I only used 50 years to break through from a martial artist to a martial god. Now I'll give you twice the time. If you become a martial god within 100 years, you have a 1% chance of killing me. If you wait 100 years, you won't have the chance. What, 1%? Didn't that mean that he had a 99% chance of dying in the hands of the human demon in 100 years? Yi Fei was completely afraid of a madman with a strange temper like the human demon. Why do you want me to kill you? In your eyes, I'm just an ant. There are so many young emperors, why don't you look for them? I can recommend you the South Spear Emperor and the West Sword Emperor. They are both young emperors with special bloodlines. They are stronger than me. Emperors? Ha 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 ha. If they can't fuse with the power of despair, even if they become martial gods, they won't be able to kill me with one hand. The strength of ordinary martial gods is too weak. Only the strongest martial gods have a chance to kill me. If you don't kill me in 100 years, once I escape, the entire Tianwu continent will be destroyed. At this point, the White Bone Monarch suddenly sighed. This was the loneliness of the strong. This sovereign is too strong. When the martial god was alive, it was difficult to find a worthy opponent. With the martial god gone, this sovereign has no opponent. The 7 martial gods of the 6 sacred sects combined could barely be considered half a match for me. Unfortunately, they were still too weak. Even if they joined forces with my 5 martial god disciples, they still weren't a match for me. At the mention of these martial gods, the White Bone King's tone was filled with deep disappointment and resentment. His voice also became ferocious. A bunch of trash. I gave them a chance to kill me, but they didn't know how to cherish it. Instead, they sacrificed their lives to trap me here for more than 100,000 years. I simply turned their flesh and blood into this god burial ground. Their bones turned into mountains, their tears turned into rivers, their teeth turned into stars, their hair turned into forests. As the White Bone Sovereign spoke, he became insane. His intense killing intent caused the 12 lifeless martial emperors' bone dragons to crawl on the ground and shiver. Yi Fei was dumbfounded. Although he had his suspicions, he still didn't expect that this god burial ground was formed from the flesh and blood of more than a dozen martial gods. What shocked him even more was that there were 7 martial gods buried here, and they were all from the 6 sacred sects. You killed the martial gods of the 6 sacred sects, and you also killed your own disciples? Why did you do that? Yi Fei couldn't understand. Could it be that this human demon had really gone crazy? Why? Because they betrayed me. I only cut off the dragon head and dragon tail of the Tianwu continent. They dared to accuse me. I simply destroyed this continent and killed all the martial gods here. Knowing this, do you hate me? The White Bone King coldly stared at Yi Fei. Of course I hate you. Yi Fei's heart was suddenly filled with a strong sense of hatred. He was a disciple of the Sixth Sacred Sect. He had a reason to avenge the 7 dead martial gods. What's more, this crazy devil had almost forced him to his death and even hurt Xiao Qiao. Very well, you should hate me. I am the greatest sinner of the Tianwu continent. If the human demon does not die, the heavens and earth will not tolerate it. These are the words of your Azura Sacred Palace's martial god before he died. I hope you can remember these words. 100 years later, become a martial god and then kill me. After giving Yi Fei one last look, the 12 skeletal dragons suddenly pulled the golden chariot and soared into the sky. In the sky, the human demon's cold voice sounded. Kill all the realms, trample the heavens and dominate. The gods and demons bow, the liches and demons are slaves. Yi Fei, remember, you can have no love in your heart, but you must have hatred. The deeper your hatred, the stronger your strength. 100 years later, I will wait for you to kill me, ha ha ha. Boom! Heaven and earth split apart as the skeletal dragons roared. Just as the human demon's golden chariot was about to charge out of this world, 13 stars emitting 7-colored light suddenly appeared in the sky. The stars were getting closer and closer. Yi Fei was shocked to discover that they weren't stars, but the heads of the 13 martial gods that the human demon had killed. As if sensing Yi Fei's gaze, 7 of the heads suddenly opened their eyes and stared at Yi Fei at the same time. Chapter 1061. The Human Demon Calamity. It's a disciple of our Azura Saint Palace. Even if the heavens perish, the people will not perish. The Saint Palace still exists. I am relieved. As long as the Saint Palace exists, the martial god will not die. Child, we have waited for you for so long. The 7 heads transmitted 7 different thoughts. As long as the martial god did not die, even a drop of blood could be reborn. Moreover, in the ancient era, the 6 saint palaces dominated the northern region. Even if they were killed, they would still retain a trace of their consciousness. At this moment, this strand of divine will was staring at Yi Fei. Yi Fei was also staring at the 7 pale-faced heads. In his daze, he began to hallucinate. It was as if he had also become a martial god, sweeping through the heavens and earth, omnipotent. He could stand in the starry sky and watch the lives of countless mortals on the continent. He could cross time and space and witness the changes of time. Boom! The 7 heads suddenly turned into 7 resplendent starlight. They entered Yi Fei's mind at the same time. Yi Fei shouted. He wore a 7-star crown and stepped on 12 divine dragons. The rumbling golden chariot sent him into a terrifying world. In that world, Yi Fei saw with his own eyes a mass of black and yellow qi wrapped around a huge divine dragon. On the divine dragon, there were cities, martial artists, and even mortals. Countless countries lived in it. Countless powerful martial artists walked on the dragon's back. There were martial emperors, martial gods, and even shamans and demons. Is that the Tianwu continent? Seeing this divine dragon, Yi Fei suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. Legend had it that the Tianwu continent was a dead divine dragon. The divine dragon turned its body into a continent and its blood into a sea. It gave birth to countless lives and evolved into a brilliant civilization. But just as Yi Fei was looking at the continent, a majestic and crazy man suddenly appeared in the starry sky. He had the holiness of a god and the madness of a demon. He formed a palm blade and brazenly slashed down on the starry sky. The dragon head and tail of the Tianwu continent were all cut off by the man's palm blade. They condensed into 2 huge stars and shot into the starry sky. After losing the dragon head, the Tianwu continent rapidly declined. Fate was lost and calamities occurred. Liches drove the vicious beasts away and took advantage of the situation to kill people. There were ghosts running amok in the capital, turning thousands of mortals into malicious ghosts. Withered bones crawled up from the ground and obeyed the call of kings, turning the earth into a land of death. Demonic gods descended and massacred cities, painting their bodies with the blood of billions of people due to the calamities. Some powerful martial gods turned into stars and fled from the continent. Some powerful sects constructed starry paths to bring their disciples into the vast starry sky. However, there were also some martial gods and martial emperors who were filled with anger at the destruction of their homes. They charged into the sky and towards that imposing figure. Countless martial emperors self-destructed in front of the man. Countless martial emperors formed terrifying battle formations and madly charged at the man. 13 martial gods were burning their life force to fight against the man. The battle in the sky continued for a long time. Corpses of martial monarchs were everywhere in the sky and on the ground. The resisting martial emperors were destroyed along with their cities. In the end, only the magnificent figure remained in the heavens and earth, who was laughing and crying at the same time. The seal formed by the blood of the 13 martial gods forcefully dragged him into an empty space. "Why don't you kill me? Perhaps there is no one in this world who can kill me. I hate it. Why do I have to be so strong?" The voice faded into the distance. Looking at the 13 dead martial gods, Yi Fei felt an inexplicable sorrow in his heart. However, before he could remember this sorrow, his gaze suddenly shifted. His gaze suddenly pierced through the layers of space and arrived at a familiar desert. In the desert, Yi Fei saw a huge stone gate built on top of a tomb. He also saw a magnificent palace. It stood at the edge of the heavens and earth. Is that the 6 Tao sacred palace? Yi Fei was shocked. Then, his gaze shifted again and actually went deep into the sacred palace. He saw a huge platform with a dozen figures standing there silently with tears in their eyes. Yi Shanshan was also standing among them. Beside her stood that despicable stone. However, the stone did not look despicable at all. Instead, he gave off a heroic aura that was different from the rest. "Palace Master, we are ashamed." Bang! The stone puppet knelt down. He knelt down with great force, as if a mountain had collapsed and the earth was shaking. Then, all the figures knelt down. They were all puppets, but Yi Fei could feel their heartfelt emotions. "Child, experience what the 7 palace masters have left for you. Inherit everything and shoulder our responsibility." The figure of an old man appeared on the platform of the sacred palace. However, it was not an illusory figure, but a huge block of ice. An old figure was sealed in the ice. The figure was very weak, but at the same time, he was very powerful. Even though they were separated by an infinite distance, Yi Fei felt suffocated. Could it be that there is still a living martial emperor in the 6 Tao sacred palace? Yi Fei was shocked by this sudden thought. However, before he could regain his senses, a huge white skeletal hand suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking everything in front of him. He is still too weak. Knowing too much now won't do him any good. You 7 old geezers have sealed me for so many years. I know that once you capture someone from the 6 Tao sacred palace and prove his worth, you will not be able to resist the urge to kill him. On the golden chariot, the white-boned sovereign's eyes were filled with bone-chilling coldness. He smiled coldly. "Now, you have given him the last of your power. You can no longer seal me. In another 100 years, when the 5 of you have exhausted their power, I will be able to break through your seals. At that time, I will go on a killing spree. I will kill everything in front of me. Gods and demons will not be able to stop me. I am the heaven, I am the earth, I am the god, and I am also the demon. Ah! Rumble!" With a sinister laugh, 7 seals suddenly appeared on the golden chariot. They exploded at the same time. The final divine sense of the 7 martial gods collapsed and turned into 7 stars, deeply imprinted on Yi Fei's arm. 7 stars around the arm. This was a kind of belief, and also a kind of responsibility. The 7 martial gods of the 6 Tao Sacred Palace used their final divine sense to tell Yi Fei what he was going to do and what he was going to experience. Sigh. In the heaven-forsaken land, on the platform of the 6 Tao Sacred Palace, a deep sigh could be heard, followed by the cries of the stone puppet. 7 palace lords, farewell. I will complete the mission that you failed to complete. Yi Fei raised his head and stared coldly at the sky. There was a flash of shocking hatred in his eyes. Only now did he realize that the human demon had captured him in order to use him to break the seals of the 7 palace masters. Now, 7 of the 13 seals had lost their effect. The remaining 5 seals could only trap the human demon for another 100 years. Chapter 1062. Wang Bai's Visita 100 Years. Human Demon. Yi Fei's eyes flashed with a cold light. But soon, his cold light became warm again. He didn't want Xiao Chao to worry. Xiao Chao, I'm sorry to have wronged you this time. I promise that I won't let anyone bully you in the future. Yi Fei bent down and carried Xiao Chao. Xiao Chao smiled happily again. She was still a little girl. Although Xiao Chao's identity was mysterious, once the danger passed, Xiao Chao returned to her carefree self. She grabbed the dragon turtle's tail and swung it around. The dragon turtle silently shed 2 lines of tears. Yi Fei couldn't help but laugh. His mood became much more cheerful. Leaving the dragon turtle to play around and amuse Xiao Chao, Yi Fei began to carefully observe his surroundings. The eerie demon palace had disappeared. When the 7 palace lords of the 6 sacred sects brought Yi Fei to travel through time, they also used the last of their strength to send Yi Fei out of the demon palace. The place where Yi Fei was standing was actually the 10th city of Purgatory. In front of him was the only building in the city, a tall altar. This altar was even bigger than the altar where the South Spear Emperor found the embryo of the imperial weapon. What surprised Yi Fei was that this altar wasn't protected by any array. The South Spear Emperor only found a small altar where the embryo of the imperial weapon was placed. The altar in front of us is 10 times bigger. The treasures stored on it are definitely more precious than the embryo of the imperial weapon. Xiao Chao, let's go up and take a look. Xiao Chao nodded vigorously. Xiao Chao wasn't interested in treasures, but treasures could be exchanged for spirit stones. Xiao Chao swallowed his saliva. The dragon turtle in his hand also looked at the altar with shifty eyes. Yi Fei rushed to the top of the altar in one breath and did not disappoint. He really did find a huge golden treasure chest on the altar. Since the chest was so luxurious, there was no need to think about it to know how precious the treasure inside was. Xiao Chao and Long Gui swallowed hard. Yi Fei was also slightly nervous. After confirming that there was no danger, he carefully opened the treasure chest. Then, there was no more then. The treasure chest was actually empty. Yi Fei's face darkened. Xiao Chao also pouted angrily. The dragon turtle refused to give up. With a click, its entire body entered the cave. Not long after, the dragon turtle's face darkened. It angrily took out a small piece of paper with its mouth. There were a few words written on the paper that were crooked, as if a dog had gnawed on it. Wang Bai was here. Wang Bai is really something. Yi Fei and Xiao Cao's faces were dark as if they saw 10,000 dragon turtles running past them. Yi Fei swore in his heart that if Wang Bai dared to show up, he would definitely drag him out and beat him to death 10,000 times. Wang Bai was really too despicable. It was despicable enough that he hid his identity and didn't show up. In order to enter the 10th city, he and Xiao Chao took a huge risk. They even attracted a terrifying demon like the human demon and almost lost their lives. In the end, the treasure of the 10th city was taken away by Wang Bai. This Wang Bai, where did he come from? What is his motive for approaching me? Yi Fei touched his chin and fell into deep thought. Looking at the piece of paper that the dragon turtle took out, Xiao Chao pouted. He stepped on the piece of paper, picked up the dragon turtle, and smashed it a few times. Then, Yi Fei and Xiao Chao walked down the altar with darkened faces and quickly left the 10th city. Since Wang Bai had already plundered this place, Yi Fei didn't expect to find any treasures. However, Wang Bai is really strange. Isn't the burial ground of the gods controlled by the 4 great sacred courtyards? When did Wang Bai come in? Could he be from the 4 great sacred courtyards? Yi Fei speculated in his mind. Moreover, he realized that although he had been with Wang Bai in the sacred land for a long time, he didn't know anything about him. After leaving, Yi Fei didn't notice that when he walked out of the 10th city, he stepped on the piece of paper and Xiao Chao hit it a few times with the dragon turtle to vent his anger. At this moment, the words on the piece of paper seemed to be alive, twisting and jumping. Wang Bai stood on the altar with his hands behind his back and looked at Yi Fei. However, when he saw the footprints left by Xiao Chao on his white clothes, Wang Bai's dignified face couldn't help but twitch. "Brother, I told you that you can't afford to offend that little girl. Sigh, this is the consequence of being handsome. I, Wang Bai, have sinned." As he spoke, Wang Bai took a step forward and stepped into the void from the altar of the 10th city. In this void, there was a gigantic demonic palace that was drifting through space. However, this couldn't stop Wang Bai's footstep. With a wave of his hand, space and time froze. Wang Bai stepped into the demonic palace. Immediately, the bone dragon roared and the chariot rumbled. The human demon stood with his hands behind his back and looked at Wang Bai coldly. "You still came. You still haven't given up. Do you think that you can kill me just because you found a person abandoned by the heavens? In this world, no one can kill me. The person abandoned by the heavens can't. The power of despair can't either. Human demon, you're too confident. Back then, we stubbornly acted alone and caused the Tianwu continent to be destroyed. We're all sinners. We must atone for our sins." Wang Bai sighed. His white clothes were like the benevolent Buddha. However, what appeared behind him wasn't a Buddha, but a 7-faced, 1,000-armed demonic god. "Ha ha, atone for our sins. We indeed need to atone for our sins. However, I'm different from you. You're the benevolent demon, but I'm the ferocious god. Heaven and earth are sinless. All sins come from the mouths of others. Since that's the case, I'll kill everyone in this world to shut their mouth. I can also cleanse my sins." Ah! Filled with madness and boiling killing intent, the human demon suddenly charged at Wang Bai with his dagger axe. Wang Bai didn't fight back, allowing the human demon's dagger axe to tear him apart. "You've really gone mad. I've gone crazy. When I go crazy, even I'm afraid of myself. You'd best disappear on your own. I've already killed you 1,000 times. I don't want to kill you 1,001 times. Cram! Roar!" The 12 bone dragons roared at the same time. The human demon stood proudly on the golden chariot, his head touching the heavens and his feet touching the earth. He was like a god sitting cross-legged in the air, sacred and dignified, but also filled with a kind of savagery and bloodthirst. Sigh. Only Wang Bai's final sigh was left in the air. Sigh. After walking out of the 10th city, Yi Fei and Xiao Chao sighed at the same time. They thought that being the first to enter the 10th city would allow them to search for treasures. In the end, they suffered a huge loss and even attracted a terrifying existence like the human demon. Yi Fei and Xiao Chao looked listless. The dragon turtle also followed behind listlessly. Yi Fei felt a headache coming on. How should he explain this to Dongfang Yu so that what happened here wouldn't be leaked? Could it be that he had to kill everyone here? This terrifying thought suddenly flashed in Yi Fei's mind. Then, Yi Fei was shocked by this thought. Chapter 1063. Metamorphosis. Cultivating both the battle demon Dao and the battle god Dao at the same time was indeed not that fun. The battle god Dao was still fine. At the very least, it only stimulated Yi Fei's battle intent. Even if there was an effect, It would only make Yi Fei more ferocious and fearless in battle. But the battle demon path was different. It was a demonic cultivation method. Since ancient times, gods and demons could not coexist. Asura and battle demon were also natural enemies. In the past, Yi Fei cultivated the Devil Emperor scripture, which was one level lower than the battle god path. Therefore, he was not affected by the demonic chi of the Devil Emperor scripture. But now, the human demon had given him the complete battle demon path, which was the highest cultivation method passed down by the battle demon ancestor himself. The influence of the battle demon path on Yi Fei began to show. The first negative effect was that Yi Fei's heart began to crave killing. He had the urge to kill at the slightest provocation. This gave Yi Fei a bold idea. Could it be that the human-demon catastrophe was caused by the human demon falling into darkness because he could not suppress the demonic nature in his heart? Yi Fei recalled that when the battle demon attacked Xiao Qiao, he clearly felt the battle demon's aura, which was as deep as the abyss from the human demon. This could also explain why the human demon had the battle demon path passed down by the battle demon ancestor. Yi Fei even suspected that the human demon was the battle demon ancestor himself. Otherwise, the battle demon path given by the human demon would not be so complete. Yi Fei was instantly alarmed. Even someone as strong as the human demon could not suppress the demonic nature in his body and fell into darkness. I must be very careful when cultivating the battle demon path. I must not let the demonic nature distort my mind. Yi Fei took a deep breath and waited for the boiling killing intent in his heart to cool down. Then, he put Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle back into the beast mark space and rushed to the 9th city. Coincidentally, Dongfang Yu also came out of the 9th city with a large group of people. Seeing Yi Fei, Dongfang Yu was a little surprised. "Brother Yi, what took you so long? Did you run off to fight the 10th city's Hydra Emperor?" Yi Fei's face twitched. It wasn't just a fight. Even the human demon, an ancestor-level demon, had been lured out by him. It was strange. He had caused such a big commotion in the 10th city. Even the dead martial god had appeared. How could Dongfang Yu still be so indifferent? "Brother Dongfang, didn't you notice anything?" Yi Fei probed. "What did you find? By the way, how could I forget that we've found quite a number of treasures in the 9th city? I'm a man of my words. Brother Yi, you can pick 2 of them now." Dongfang Yu did not hide anything, as he gathered all the treasures in an open space. The most dazzling treasure was only slightly less valuable than the Emperor weapon Origin Embryo. Yi Fei understood that Dongfang Yu was a straightforward person. However, what Yi Fei cared about was not these treasures, but the ignorance of Dongfang Yu and the others. It was obvious that they were not faking it. They truly had no idea what had happened in the 10th city. Could it be the human demons doing too? Yi Fei recalled how the human demon had used the demonic palace as a prison, separating the demonic palace into 2 different dimensions. Now that he thought about it, it was highly possible that the human demon had placed the 10th city into another dimension when he had captured him and Xiao Qiao. It also explained why Dongfang Yu and the others had not discovered anything despite the chaos that had happened in the 10th city. If Dongfang Yu really knows something, he would have rushed into the 10th city. They must have rushed to the 10th city a long time ago. It was impossible for them to not ask anything. The human demon's methods are indeed terrifying. Separating the dimensions and forming a parallel world was much more brilliant than the demon emperor's method of erasing the memories of hundreds of thousands of people with a single slash. Yi Fei finally felt relieved. He adjusted his thoughts and smilingly said to Dongfang Yu, "Haha, brother Dongfang, I won't hold back then." Saying this, Yi Fei walked over and picked a pair of bronze gloves and a set of bronze armor from the treasures he had discovered in the 9th city. These 2 treasures were top-tier Dominator weapons, but they were ranked 9th and 8th among the treasures in the 9th city, thus they were not considered precious. Yi Fei's choice allowed many of the emperors of the Fist City to let out sighs of relief. Dongfang Yu's gaze toward Yi Fei was filled with admiration. This treasure selection was actually a test to see if Yi Fei was greedy and if he was worthy of Dongfang Yu's friendship. Yi Fei's actions had undoubtedly won the favor of Dongfang Yu and the rest of the emperors. "Brother Yi, you're the best." The roar of the beast from the 10th city almost scared us to death. "I didn't expect you to be able to escape unscathed and hold off a half-martial dominator realm demonic beast for such a long time." "Yeah, Brother Yi, tell us about the strength of the half-martial dominator realm demonic beast. Let's figure it out first, and we'll find a chance to enter the 10th city in the future. We've already obtained a lot of treasures in the 9th city. I'm sure the treasures in the 10th city will be even more valuable." The group of emperors had already acknowledged Yi Fei and treated Yi Fei as one of their own. They were asking for information and joking with him. Yi Fei responded with a smile. However, when he heard that they were still thinking about the treasures in the 10th city, the corners of Yi Fei's mouth twitched violently. If this group of emperors really charged into the 10th city, they would definitely cry. "Brother Yi, why do I feel that your aura is different from before? I actually feel a sense of danger when I'm with you." Dongfang Yu's intuition was amazing. After exchanging pleasantries, he immediately discovered that there was something different about Yi Fei. In fact, although Yi Fei did not obtain any treasures in the 10th city, Yi Fei had already undergone a huge transformation under the pressure of the human demon. This transformation was the heavenly tribulation. The heavenly tribulation represents destruction, but at the same time, it also gives birth to new life. Even Yi Fei himself could not believe that under the immense pressure of the human demon, he had actually succeeded in transcending the third heavenly tribulation with his own strength without any preparation. After experiencing life and death and comprehending the profound of life and death, Yi Fei's body naturally underwent a huge transformation. In short, Yi Fei had become more mature. The young lad from before had become a real man with an indomitable spirit. However, Yi Fei did not notice this transformation. When he heard Dongfang Yu's words, Yi Fei only smiled indifferently, thinking that Dongfang Yu was referring to his strength. That's right. After successfully integrating the third despair power, Yi Fei's combat strength had officially broken through from the strongest king level to the young emperor level. Now, he was the 7th young emperor in the land of buried gods. "I just don't know if I'm stronger than Dongfang Yu now." Yi Fei was eager to have a try. However, Purgatory City was obviously not a good place to compare note. Fearing that Dongfang Yu would discover that the 9-headed snake emperor of the 10th city had been trampled to death by the dragon turtle, Yi Fei hurriedly changed the topic. In the name of worrying about Xia Jun and the others, he hurriedly left the secret realm. "Brother Yi, since you've come to our Fist Emperor City, you can stay here at ease. In the future, your business is my business. We will advance and retreat together in the land of buried gods." Chapter 1064. The Spear Emperor's Wrath. Although he wanted to befriend Yi Fei, the first thing Dongfang Yu did when he returned to the city was to refine the treasures he had obtained. The other young kings did the same. The Fist Emperor's city did not change because of the Fist Emperor's fruitful return with his people. Cultivators were usually very busy. They were busy with cultivation, training, and seclusion. The opening of the burial grounds of the gods only happened once every few decades. Most of the cultivators who were able to enter the burial grounds of the gods worked very hard. Yi Fei was also working hard. He was trying to understand the life and death ultimacy. However, the ultimacy was a very profound realm of cultivation. Neither he, Xia Jun, nor Lin Tianjiao could give a reasonable explanation. "Yi Fei, if you want to know what the intents of enlightenment are, I don't think you should ask now. You should wait until you enter the Holy Court and ask the teachers or martial emperors. Perhaps only they would be able to answer this question. Lin Tianjiao said after pondering for a moment. That's right. The 4 holy institutes are the strongest in the Central Plains. Perhaps only martial emperors can give you a detailed explanation about the ultimacy. Yi Fei nodded. He had comprehended the ultimacy by accident. Of course, it was also thanks to the despair energy. However, Yi Fei could not explain it in detail. Oh, by the way, I obtained 2 treasures in the Mystery Land. Lin Tianjiao, you and Fatty can choose one each. Yi Fei took out the bronze gloves and bronze armor. These 2 items were top-quality imperial weapons. As soon as they were taken out, Lin Tianjiao's expression changed. Xia Jun was also drooling. Why are there only 2? Brother, you can't favor one over the other. Go away. You already have a golden battle saber. Lin Tianjiao and Pang Bei don't have any imperial weapons. Of course, you won't get one this time. Yi Fei laughed. What? These are top-quality imperial weapons? Yi Fei, I appreciate your kind intentions, but I can't accept such a valuable treasure. Lin Tianjiao waved his hand resolutely. Lin Tianjiao, if you don't want it, then you're not treating us as brothers. Xia Jun shouted. Yi Fei also nodded. In the northern domain, he and Lin Tianjiao were old acquaintances. In the central continent they had gone through some hardships together, and their friendship had deepened. They had become brothers. This was also the reason why Yi Fei had given Lin Tianjiao an emperor artifact. Brothers, we can share trials and tribulations together, and we can share riches and honor together. This, sigh, looks like I have no choice but to accept it. Lin Tianjiao was very proud, but he was not an unreasonable person. In the end, Lin Tianjiao chose the pair of gloves. The little fatty, Pang Bei, happily took the bronze armor. This was not enough. Yi Fei also planned to find a suitable time to impart the immortal emperor's scripture to Xia Jun and Lin Tianjiao. Last time, Lin Tianjiao sold me the Eye of Thunder punishment. It was a great deal for me, but Lin Tianjiao suffered a great loss. When I impart the immortal emperor's scripture to him, I will return the favor. Yi Fei thought to himself. Since Dongfang Yu was taking care of him, Yi Fei decided to stay in the Royal Fist City for a few more days to relax. He did not know that there were already a few pairs of eyes coldly watching him in the Royal Fist City. Outside the Royal Fist City, there were 2 groups of people who were quickly surrounding the city. One of the groups was under the banner of the South Spear Emperor, while the other was under the banner of the West Sword Emperor. These 2 emperors represented the Divine Martial Sacred Institute and the Heavenly Law Sacred Institute. In the land of buried gods, all the martialists who wanted to join the 2 sacred institutes were gathered around these 2 emperors. Similarly, the East Blade Emperor represented the Heavenly Law Sacred Institute. Of course, most of the martialists had not decided which sacred institute to join before the end of the trial in the land of buried god. There were also many of them, so they were scattered around the Royal Fist City, the Flame City, and the Ice Frost City. The Ice Frost City's Polar Ice Emperor was very low-key. Although he was an emperor, he had never shown his face. Lord Spear Emperor, we have investigated clearly that Yi Fei is indeed hiding in the Royal Fist City with 3 of his brothers. However, we did not find any trace of the Gua King. A scout who had been observing Lin Tianjiao and the others for a long time reported to the South Spear Emperor. The South Spear Emperor's expression turned ugly. Those who could become emperors were no fools. Yi Fei's trap could make the South Spear Emperor and the West Sword Emperor suspicious for a while. However, as the matter became bigger and bigger, the South Spear Emperor and the West Sword Emperor felt that something was wrong. This was especially so after Shimen Zun swore that all his golden sacred swords had been taken away by Yi Fei. Very quickly, the 2 sovereigns realized that they might have been used by someone else. Relying on the special influence of emperors, the South Spear Emperor and the West Sword Emperor quickly investigated everything about Yi Fei. The ordinary martialists from the Snow Wind Empire were even more incompatible with Bailey Jin. Most importantly, the Divine Martial Sacred Institute's teacher Lu Ming had specially instructed the South Spear Emperor to take care of Bailey Jin and help him deal with Yi Fei to wash away his shame. For this reason, the South Spear Emperor had sent the Gua King to help Bailey Jin. However, Bailey Jin had already been killed by Yi Fei. The Gua King who went to help was nowhere to be found. Then, he suddenly appeared in the Black Forest and stirred up the feud between the two emperors. Most importantly, the fragment of the golden sacred sword that was originally taken away by Yi Fei was found in the body of the dead Blood Kill King. All kinds of evidence were added together. The South Spear Emperor and the West Sword Emperor were furious to find that the person behind the Gua King was most likely Yi Fei. The person who killed the Blood Kill King and framed Shimen was also most likely Yi Fei. What the two emperors couldn't tolerate the most was that the emperor weapon embryo that they had been fighting for a long time might have fallen into the hands of Yi Fei. In their fury, the South Spear Emperor and the West Sword Emperor immediately buried the hatchet and joined forces to find Yi Fei's whereabouts. Then, they immediately rushed over. Very good. This Yi Fei isn't even an emperor, yet he dares to mess with us. Not only did he kill Bailey Jin, he even instigated the Gua King to betray us and steal the Emperor weapon embryo. Charge into the Emperor Fist City and find that Yi Fei. I, the South Spear Emperor, will stab him to death. South Spear Emperor, hand Yi Fei's life to me, Shimen. I want him to beg for death. Shimen's eyes were red. Ever since he was misunderstood to have killed the Blood Kill King, his reputation had been terrible. Wherever he went, he would be spurned. Shimen was furious. Now that he finally found the culprit who made him the scapegoat, Shimen couldn't wait to charge into the Emperor Fist City and fight to the death with Yi Fei. The West Sword Emperor was also furious. According to Shimen's report, not only did Yi Fei have the Emperor weapon embryo, he also had the golden leaf that he needed the most. Because of this, the West Sword Emperor would definitely not let Yi Fei go. The anger of the two emperors made Shui Wushang, Jiang Xiaoma, and the others who were following behind them feel cold. Chapter 1065. Unable to withstand a single blow ever since Bailey Jin's death, the Snow Wind Empire had been in a state of disunity. Shui Wushang, Jiang Xiaoma, and the rest regretted treating Yi Fei so coldly and causing the Snow Wind Empire to lose a super genius. At this moment, when they saw the South Spear Monarch and the West Sword Monarch, the two martial emperors, emitting killing intent toward Yi Fei, the emotions in their hearts became even more complicated. Fighting against kings alone and snatching food from the jaws of two sovereigns. Even if Yi Fei dies in battle, he will die in glory. Ning Zhongchen sighed. Die? I don't think so. Brother Yi isn't a reckless person. Since he can fight against two sovereigns, he should have some confidence. Jiang Qing shook his head. He didn't want to participate in this matter, but he was helpless. He was a member of the Snow Wind Empire and was friends with Yi Fei. The first person the two sovereigns wanted to capture was him. Humph, Jiang Qing, even now you still think highly of Yi Fei? I admit that my father and I have underestimated Yi Fei. However, no matter how strong Yi Fei is, can he be stronger than two sovereigns? Right now I only hope that Yi Fei's death won't implicate us. Jiang Xiaoma's tone was relaxed. In fact, she still hoped that Yi Fei would die in the god burial ground. Only then would they be able to avoid any future troubles. The South Spear Emperor and West Sword Emperor's actions couldn't escape the ears of the Fist Emperor city. Very quickly, the news of the two sovereigns' armies approaching the city spread throughout the city. What? The South Spear Emperor and West Sword Emperor are here at the same time? Xia Jun and Lin Tianjiao stopped cultivating and looked at Yi Fei with a strange expression. The little fatty asked in a simple and honest manner, "Brother, could it be that you've caused some trouble again? Do I look like a troublemaker to you?" Yi Fei was very depressed. In the end, paper could not wrap the fire. Seeing as the two rulers were coming aggressively, he roughly understood what was going on. "Yi Fei, come out and face your death." Shimin Zun's voice filled with hatred came from outside the city. Only then did the Fist Emperor city know that the two emperors had come for Yi Fei. They were all very puzzled. Who was this Yi Fei? What exactly had he done that the two martial emperors were so concerned about? Not to mention the common warriors in the Fist Emperor city, even Dongfang Yu felt it incredible when he received the news. What did Brother Yi do to offend two emperors? Lord Fist Emperor, the South Spear Emperor and the West Sword Emperor have sent a message. They want to enter the city to capture someone. They hope that you can make it easy for them. The three strongest kings also rushed over. Dongfang Yu looked dignified. If I help them, who will help me? Brother Yi is my guest. No matter what, since he is in the Fist Emperor city, I can't let anything happen to him. Let's go out and have a look. As he spoke, Dongfang Yu saw several streams of flowing light rushing out of the Fist Emperor city. He hurriedly rushed out with his men. The ones who left the city were naturally Yi Fei, Xia Jun, Lin Tianjiao, and Little Fatty. Xiao Chao and the Dragon Tortoise also hid in the beast mark space to avoid being discovered. Since the matter had been exposed, there was no use in escaping. Coincidentally, Yi Fei's war god path had broken through to the 6th level, and he had ambushed the young martial emperors. Yi Fei also had the confidence to face these martial emperors. Letting Xia Jun and the others stay on the city wall, Yi Fei stepped out of the city alone. Outside the city, hundreds of eyes filled with murderous intent were all fixed on Yi Fei. Shimin Zun's eyes were especially ferocious. If looks could kill, Yi Fei would have been smashed into pieces the moment he stepped out of the city. Shimin Zun's eyes were especially red when he saw his enemy. He grinned hideously and said, "Yi Fei, you despicable person. First, you shamelessly took away my golden holy sword. Then, you killed the Blood Killer King and framed me. Do you admit to these two things?" As soon as he arrived, Shimin Zun questioned Yi Fei. He wanted to clear his name. Hearing this, Yi Fei didn't deny it. He simply admitted, "That's right. I killed the Blood Killer King. I also ordered Gua Wang to take away the Imperial Weapon Embryo. I did it. What can you do?" Boom. There was an uproar. Even Shimin Zun didn't expect Yi Fei to admit it so easily. At this moment, everyone understood the reason for the anger of the two martial emperors. Not only did Yi Fei kill the strongest martial emperor, but he also stole the Imperial Weapon Embryo under the eyes of the two martial emperors. How audacious is this? What kind of madness is this? Kill him. Kill this Yi Fei. The subordinates of the two martial emperors were furious. Because of Yi Fei's framing, they had fought several times and suffered heavy casualties. The South Spear Emperor and the West Sword Emperor were even more shocked and angry. The South Spear Emperor sneered, "Very good. Yi Fei, you really have guts. You dare to instigate my subordinates to rebel. You dare to take away my Imperial Weapon Embryo. So what? What bullshit South Spear Emperor? He's just a dog of the Shenwu Sacred Academy and Lu Ming." Yi Fei stared at the South Spear Emperor coldly. It was this person who sent Gua Wang to hunt down Xia Jun and Pang Bei, almost letting them fall into the hands of Bei Lijun. Since the South Spear Emperor wanted to join the Shenwu Sacred Academy so much to curry favor with Lu Ming, Yi Fei of course wouldn't be polite to the South Spear Emperor. "What did you say? Who do you think you are? How dare you be presumptuous in front of us martial emperors? How dare you insult the #1 Shenwu Sacred Academy in the Central State? You deserve to be punished. Your crime is unforgivable. The South Spear Emperor was full of righteousness, and his face was full of anger. But before he made a move, the West Sword Emperor quickly interrupted and shouted in a deep voice, "This Yi Fei is mine." Not only did he disrespect the martial emperors, but he also framed me. If I don't kill him, how can I, the West Sword Emperor, live? Brother, don't do it. Let me do it. I once made a blood oath to tear his flesh apart and swallow it piece by piece. Boom! A fierce sword light emerged from Shimin Zun's body. He took a step forward and was in the sky. The terrifying sword light had already illuminated the entire Emperor Fist City. The West Sword Emperor and the South Spear Emperor didn't stop him. Instead, they looked at each other and saw the deep meaning in each other's eyes. They also wanted to see what Yi Fei relied on to provoke the two martial emperors. Yi Fei, take my sword, blue sky falling Milky Way falling ninth heaven. Shimin Zun felt that this was an opportunity for him to show his face in front of others, so he used his martial arts with extra effort. As soon as his sword light came out, the space was shattered. Heaven and earth were inverted. The sword light formed a waterfall that quickly turned into a silver glittering waterfall. With a loud rumble, it slashed towards Yi Fei. Yi Fei's eyes turned cold. He couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Shimin Zun. He allowed the waterfall formed by the sword light to wash over him. In the next moment, Yi Fei made his move. He went up against the sword. His palm carried wind and thunder. It was like a huge dragon slapping the waves. With a loud boom, the waterfall-like sword light was shattered into pieces and turned into scattered streams of air. Then Yi Fei stepped forward. His palm didn't stop. It was like a thunderclap as it slapped towards Shimin Zun's face. You dare to shatter my sword light with your bare hands? Shimin Zun couldn't accept it. His strongest sword technique couldn't block Yi Fei's ordinary slap. Then, he felt an intense pain on his face. But Shimin Zun's face was already red and swollen. He let out a blood-curdling scream. His body was like a leaf in the autumn wind as he was sent flying. People could clearly see that when Shimin Zun screamed, there were many bloody teeth that came out of his mouth. Can't even withstand a single blow. Chapter 1066. Great Battle with the Sword Emperor Yu. Shimin Zun fell to the ground. When he heard Yi Fei's mockery and saw the broken teeth on the ground, he felt that everyone was mocking and looking down on him. The intense shame and anger made Shimin Zun spurt out blood. He was so angry that he felt dizzy and smoke came out of his mouth and nose. Roar! Then, Shimin Zun hollered in rage. Like a mad dog, he jumped up and was about to charge over to wash away this humiliation. Enough! Don't you think you've lost enough face? When the West Sword Emperor saw his younger brother's situation, he was filled with anger instead of sympathy. Everyone knew that Shimin Zun was his younger brother. If Shimin Zun lost face, he would lose face as well. Seeing the West Sword Emperor's anger, Shimin Zun came to his senses and retreated unwillingly. Brother, take revenge for me. Shimin Zun touched his swollen face. The veins on his forehead were twisted. The West Sword Emperor did not reply. He stared at Yi Fei for a while and said coldly, Yi Fei, you do have some ability. But that ability is not enough in front of us emperors. Yi Fei sneered and did not back down. Whether it's enough or not, it's not up to you to decide. We'll know after we fight. What? This Yi Fei wants to challenge an emperor? Who does he think he is? Is he worthy of being an opponent of an emperor? Yi Fei's arrogant words caused the tens of thousands of spectating cultivators to look at him with disdain. Shui Wushang and the other Snow Wind Empire's cultivators also lowered their heads in shame. They felt that Yi Fei's boasting was too big and too loud. Brother Yi, don't joke around. I don't care what grudges you have. This is the Fist Emperor City. Whoever fights here will be going against the Fist Emperor. Dongfang Yu finally came out. He was righteous and selfless, as if he would not help either side. But Yi Fei understood that the more Dongfang Yu acted like this, the more biased he would be. The South Spear Emperor and West Sword Emperor were enraged. They all glared at Dongfang Yu angrily. The South Spear Emperor said coldly, "Don't help either side. Fist Emperor, if you really don't have any selfish motives, then chase Yi Fei and his accomplices out of Fist Emperor City. We promise that we won't touch a single blade of grass in the Fist Emperor City." Dongfang Yu's expression changed. Yi Fei was his guest. Now that Yi Fei was in trouble, how could Dongfang Yu just stand by and watch? "Brother Yi, let's go back. With me around, let's see who dares to barge into the Imperial Fist City. Fist Emperor, if you dare to interfere, you are going against the Divine Martial Arts Academy." The South Spear Emperor directly threatened Dongfang Yu with the academy. "You." Dongfang Yu's face was full of anger. He didn't expect the South Spear Emperor to be so despicable. He was obviously using the name of the Divine Martial Arts Academy to settle his personal grudge. "Brother Yi, ignore them. Follow me into the city. If they have the ability, let them attack us." Dongfang Yu was clearly angry. He turned around and was about to invite Yi Fei into the city. Yi Fei shook his head. "Brother Dongfang, I appreciate your kindness, but this is my business. I can't implicate you. West Sword Emperor, make your move. It just so happens that I also want to experience your sword technique." "Experience my sword technique?" The West Sword Emperor sneered. "All right, since you aren't willing to hand over the Emperor weapon embryo, I'll take it from your corpse." Boom! The sword shook the 9 heavens. It was like a dragon's roar, like a tiger's roar. The West Sword Emperor's sword was accompanied by a dragon and a tiger. Just the condensed sword light was enough to shock countless swordsmen and make them feel ashamed of their inferiority. "Good sword!" Yi Fei cheered. Although they were enemies, the West Sword Emperor's sword technique was indeed very powerful. "This is the sword that will kill you," the West Sword Emperor sneered. He waved the saint's sword in his hand. The dragon roar shook the 9 heavens, forming a terrifying divine dragon that slithered and tore the sky apart. The tiger roar shattered the forest. The white tiger soared through the sky, causing the weather to change. Its sharp claws slashed forward, forming a terrifying sword light that clawed a huge hole in the ground. When the sword light shone on Yi Fei's body, he felt his breathing stagnate. His primordial spirit was shaken by the dragon and tiger roar. This is the sword sound. The dragon and tiger are just the form. The sword sound is the true killing move. Yi Fei's sword heart was enlightened. He instantly grasped the profoundness of the West Sword Emperor's sword light. He sneered. Without unsheathing his sword, sword chi was already whistling around his body. It was like the roar of a war demon, like the roar of an Azura. Ah! The sound of the sword was vast and mighty, like the sound of war drums, like the battle cries of the battlefield. Yi Fei roared, and from his mouth, there was actually a burst of dazzling sword light that formed into ripples, shattering the dragon roar in the sky. Yi Fei then stomped his feet, and the sound of the sword transformed into a mountain, smashing the tiger roar into pieces. "It's actually the sword sound. You actually use a sword." The West Sword Emperor's expression gradually turned grave. "That's right. The sword I use is better than your sword." Yi Fei stopped his roar. His hand touched his spatial belt, and a resplendent golden saint's sword appeared in his hand. "That's my sword. Damn it. You'll die a horrible death," Shimen Zun roared. Until now, he still couldn't understand how Yi Fei snatched his sword. "You're courting death. I'm the Sword Emperor. In front of me, you're not qualified to use a sword. You're also not qualified to use a sword." "Yi Fei, since you're an ordinary martial artist, you should be obedient and be a nobody. You shouldn't go against me, and you shouldn't draw your sword in front of the Sword Emperor." Killing intent surfaced in his eyes. As the Sword Emperor, he was provoked by someone using a sword. The West Sword Emperor couldn't tolerate such provocation. He immersed himself in his sword. His sword light became even more resplendent, forming a layer of sword halo behind his head like a sun. Kill. The West Sword Emperor drew his sword again. This time, he wasn't probing, but attacking with his full strength. Heaven flying immortal. With a sneer, the West Sword Emperor's aura inexplicably became otherworldly. He was like an immortal from the 9 heavens, walking towards Yi Fei step by step. The sword that appeared in his hand wasn't an ordinary sword. It was an immortal's sword, a sword for killing. Die. The West Sword Emperor coldly spoke. Like an immortal descending, he raised the immortal's sword and slashed at Yi Fei. The void behind Yi Fei was sliced into nothingness. Fight. Yi Fei wielded the golden saint's sword. Sword chi whistled from his body, forming a huge void black hole. Endless sword fire crazily surged out from the black hole. Instantly, the sky around the West Sword Emperor turned into a sea of fire. There was a loud bang. The endless sword fire was suddenly torn apart. Even the void black hole was pierced through by a sword. An immortal wielding an immortal's sword slashed forward. Your sword isn't bad, but it's a pity that mine is an immortal's sword. Who cares if it's an immortal sword or an ordinary sword? If it can kill, it's a good sword. A blade of grass can be a sword. A drop of water can be a sword. Everything can be a sword. Yi Fei shook his head indifferently. In his mind, he suddenly recalled Sword Maniac Elder using wood as a sword and stone as a sword on the sword peak. Yi Fei's sword light changed. What he slashed out was no longer sword light. Instead, it was a mountain, a forest, and a sword that could create everything. This is impossible. You can actually comprehend the sword of all creation. This is a realm that only emperors can reach. You are also a young emperor. The West Sword Emperor's face suddenly turned extremely ugly. He slashed the sword mountain in anger. The immortal sword didn't stop. The sword light was so bright that it was blinding. No one could see the West Sword Emperor's sword clearly. They could only vaguely see a terrifying silver sword screen like a rainstorm or a waterfall. Blue sky falling, Milky Way falling, 9 heavens. Chapter 1067. The Pinnacle Showdown. The same sword, but a different person. Sky falling, Milky Way, 9 heavens falling. This was Shimen Zun's most famous sword technique. But when it was executed by the West Sword Emperor, its might was more than 10 times stronger than Shimen Zun's. Rumble. A sword light tore through the sky. A river flowed in the sky. It wasn't a real river, but a sword aura, a sword aura. Sword transforming into all things. I can do it too. Unfortunately, my height is something an ordinary martial artist like you can never reach in your lifetime. The West Sword Emperor's expression was arrogant like an immortal. Sword light surged and the 9 heavens falling Milky Way caused the world to rumble. Even the sun and moon dimmed. Yi Fei's brows also turned grave. The West Sword Emperor's sword Dao is stronger than I expected. Is this his full-strength attack? I should avoid it. Yi Fei didn't go up to block the sword river. He retreated. He wanted to avoid the sword light and the sharpness of the West Sword Emperor's peak. His footsteps were like floating clouds and flowing water. He floated in the air, allowing the sword chi to whiz past him and shatter pieces of the void. Yi Fei's heart was still, his mind was still, and his sword was still. His entire being had become one with the sword chi around him. Humph. You think you can avoid my sharpness by fusing with your sword? I'm the Sword Emperor, the Emperor of Swords. Your sword will definitely submit to my sword. Since I've made my move, you must die today. The West Sword Emperor let out a sword whistle. In the sky, the surging river suddenly turned into a rumbling waterfall. The sword was like a waterfall, covering the entire world. The sword light was everywhere, penetrating through every nook and cranny, as if it wanted to cleanse the sins of the world. The West Sword Emperor stood high above, like an immortal walking in the mortal world. His cold eyes suddenly flashed with a sharp killing intent. The West Sword Emperor caught hold of a flaw in Yi Fei's dodging. Like an immortal from beyond the heavens, he suddenly slashed over. The sharp sword light broke through the waves and also wanted to break Yi Fei's chest. It was also at this moment that a lightning vortex appeared on Yi Fei's forehead. He opened his eye of lightning punishment and fiercely looked at the West Sword Emperor's transcendent flying immortal. Instantly, he found a trace of a flaw that was quickly concealed within this strict sword technique. Kill. Yi Fei finally drew his sword. Just as the West Sword Emperor had grasped his flaw, he had also grasped the West Sword Emperor's flaw in an instant. The golden sacred sword shone with a purplish-gold radiance. Under Yi Fei's control, the whistling sword light gradually formed a peculiar taiji pattern and struck forward. Purple-gold taiji sword. Shua. Yi Fei transformed his sword momentum into a taiji. Not only did he block Bai Luo's Milky Way descending ninth heaven's sword river, but at the same time, he exerted strength in his arms and pushed upwards with all his might. Yi Fei actually flicked the falling sword river into the sky with a single swing of his sword, forming a reverse heavenly river. He then used West Sword Emperor's sword momentum to counterattack West Sword Emperor. You can actually reverse the Milky Way and break my sword force. You're courting death. The West Sword Emperor was enraged. With a movement of his toes, his sword split apart the waves as the tip of his sword stepped on the waves. He continued using Transcendent Flying Immortal as an immortal sword beam pierced towards Yi Fei's body. Unfortunately, my sword aura has already passed through the Earth Sword and entered the Heaven Sword. Have a taste of my heavenly sword's power. Boom. The sword aura condensed as if the heavenly Tao had been added to his body. A wisp of heavenly Tao aura actually appeared on the West Sword Emperor's sword. He wanted to borrow the heavenly Tao's power to kill Yi Fei. The West Sword Emperor's strength greatly shocked all the sword-wielding martial artists present. Heavenly sword's power. Isn't that a sword aura that only sky-reaching martial saints can comprehend? As expected of a young emperor. Even if he isn't a martial saint, he surpasses one. The West Sword Emperor is too strong. On the other hand, that Yi Fei is about to be defeated, some people sighed while others were excited. The spectating martial artists sighed while the excited one was Yi Fei. Heavenly sword's power? As expected of a sword emperor. Indeed strong. Since that's the case, I can't hold back either. Yi Fei's sword aura became even slower as the sword light continuously drew the taiji symbol in the air. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What? By the time the taiji symbol reached 8, Yi Fei's body was somewhat unable to bear the terrifying energy required to manifest the taiji symbol, causing him to feel slightly dizzy. However, the scene of 8 purple-gold taiji symbols floating before Yi Fei was incomparably magnificent. Even the Fist Emperor and the South Spear Emperor, these two emperors, were somewhat shocked by Yi Fei's vigorous Yuan spirit. Humph, flashy but without substance. I am the Sword Emperor. Competing with me in the sword and using such small tricks, you are truly a clown. The West Sword Emperor revealed a look of disdain. What dog's hit taiji? He had never even heard of it before. It was simply dog's hit. Yi Fei, open your dog eyes wide and see clearly what a sword is. Who is the true Emperor of Swords? Boom. Heavenly Flying Immortal finally descended. The West Sword Emperor raised his sacred sword and stabbed out, shattering the taiji symbol blocking his way. In the blink of an eye, 5 taiji symbols were shattered by Heavenly Flying Immortal, causing countless people to cheer. Yi Fei's brows also slightly furrowed. Heavenly Flying Immortal is indeed frightening. I wonder if my Taiji sword can block it. Bang! The immortal sword continued to descend, shattering 5 Taiji symbols in one breath. However, the West Sword Emperor's face didn't show any joy. Instead, his eyes revealed a deep shock. The Taiji symbol before him wasn't as flashy as he had imagined. It wasn't deliberately mystifying by Yi Fei either. This was a sword technique that Yi Fei had comprehended after successfully fusing the power of despair for the 3rd time. However, due to the impact of the profound of life and death, Yi Fei only had the opportunity to test the might of the Taiji sword now. The purple-gold Taiji sword didn't disappoint Yi Fei's expectations. Every time the West Sword Emperor's sword shattered a Taiji symbol, the power of Heavenly Flying Immortal would be weakened by a layer. After shattering 5 Taiji symbols, Heavenly Flying Immortal's attack had already been weakened by half. After shattering the 6th and 7th Taiji symbols, the West Sword Emperor's attack was left with less than 20%. However, what made the West Sword Emperor feel despair was that there was still a Taiji symbol in front of Yi Fei. No matter what, the West Sword Emperor didn't dare to stab the remaining Taiji symbol. Not to mention whether the remaining 2 layers of Heavenly Flying Immortal could shatter the 8th Taiji symbol. Even if it did, how could the Heavenly Flying Immortal, which no longer had any attacking power, block Yi Fei's counterattack? Damn it! This ant. Could it be that his zodiac is a turtle? The West Sword Emperor retreated furiously, resolutely giving up on shattering the last Taiji symbol. At the same time, he rapidly retreated, wanting to regroup and continue his attack. Where do you think you're going? West Sword Emperor, take my sword as well. Yi Fei had been waiting for this moment. Taiji could be used for both defense and offense. Kill. Taking advantage of the West Sword Emperor's attack, Yi Fei suddenly roared. The incomparably slow golden sacred sword in his hand suddenly became as swift as lightning. Taiji has softness within hardness. It can be used for slow defense, but it can also be used for quick attack. West Sword Emperor, open your dog eyes wide and take a good look. This is my sword. Yi Fei didn't hold back and returned the West Sword Emperor's words. Chapter 1068. The Sword Emperor falls. Boom. Boom. The 2 swords were like 2 resplendent comets as they collided in the sky. The sword light from both sides shattered the void behind the other into nothingness. In the end, the 2 majestic sword auras fused into a terrifying sword ripple that spread out in all directions. Boom. The crude city walls of the Fist Emperor City were unable to withstand the impact of a battle between 2 sovereigns and were shattered by the sword light. The spectators frantically retreated. Apart from the 2 young sovereigns, the North Fist Emperor and the South Spear Emperor, all the other sovereigns retreated with pale faces. The impact of the sword ripple was too terrifying. It was an attack from a sovereign that could kill a sovereign with a single strike. Too strong. The battle between sovereigns is too terrifying. Are they really only half saints? Sigh. Comparisons are odious. We're all half saints, but the gap between us and sovereigns is too great. Did you see that? The West Sword Emperor actually retreated. Could it be that even the West Sword Emperor isn't Yi Fei's opponent? Someone suddenly thought of something and couldn't help exclaiming in shock. With a swoosh, those sovereigns who still had lingering fear raised their heads and looked at the sky with shock and fear. In the sky, Yi Fei and the West Sword Emperor stood facing each other. They both held a golden sacred sword in their hands. However, Yi Fei's golden sacred sword had already shattered into dust. Even the West Sword Emperor's hasty counterattack had instantly destroyed his sacred sword. Looks like the West Sword Emperor has won. The Crown Prince heaved a sigh of relief and was about to lead the sovereigns in cheering. Puff! The West Sword Emperor, who was standing proudly, suddenly spurted out a mouthful of blood. He staggered in the air and retreated a few steps. His face turned furious. Impossible! I'm the Sword Emperor. How can I lose to a nobody in the Sword Dao? Yi Fei, I'll kill you. Ah! The West Sword Emperor was thoroughly enraged. He was the Sword Emperor. Sword Dao was his greatest pride. But now, there was someone whose Sword Dao was above him and defeated him in front of everyone. Didn't that mean that Yi Fei would replace his position and become the new Sword Emperor? The West Sword King immediately felt a great sense of danger. At this moment, he no longer cared about the imperial weapon Origin Embryo or the Golden Leaf. The intense sense of danger and the jealousy hidden in the depths of his heart made him only have one thought. I must eliminate Yi Fei. I must not let this person take away my position as the Sword Emperor. That is my glory and my life. Kill. Heaven's severing sword. Rumble. The sword was like a long river, and even more like a raging wave. In his fury, the West Sword Emperor actually broke through his own limits. Not only did he transform his body into a sword, he even completely fused with the Sword River. In the sky, the West Sword Emperor's figure could no longer be seen. Only the torrential Sword River could be seen, forming a huge sword that slashed fiercely at Yi Fei. The West Sword Emperor is going all out. Brother Yi, you actually forced the West Sword Emperor to such a state? Dongfang Yu was shocked. He couldn't believe that the person standing before him was Yi Fei. The West Sword Emperor is crazy. No, he's defending his dignity as an emperor. He can't tolerate losing the title of Sword Emperor. It'll be best if they perish together. That will be my chance. The South Spear Emperor smiled sinisterly, watching the show. He took a deep breath. Yi Fei's expression turned heavy as well. An emperor who went all out was extremely terrifying. Just the violet gold Taiji sword alone wouldn't be able to defeat the West Sword Emperor. After all, this person had already comprehended the might of the heavenly sword. His sword might was above him. I don't have the heavenly sword momentum. Even if I become one with the sword, I might not be a match for the West Sword Emperor. But at the same time, I have something that the West Sword Emperor doesn't have. That is the Eye of Lightning Punishment and the Life and Death Profound. The Eye of Lightning Punishment allowed Yi Fei to easily discover the West Sword Emperor's huge sword light within the torrential Sword River. They were both life and death profound. Although Yi Fei didn't understand it, he had a feeling that it was an extremely powerful thing. It was also his greatest trump card. At this moment, Yi Fei didn't hesitate to use this trump card. The Earth Sword faded away. At the same time, an indescribable aura emerged from Yi Fei's body and rapidly fused into his sword. Back in the Fist Emperor City, Yi Fei had already discovered that the Life and Death Profound didn't only affect his fist technique, it could also affect his sword technique. Life and Death Sword. Yi Fei raised the golden sacred sword. His sword light was suddenly filled with exuberant vitality. It was as if all living things were reviving, as if a withered tree was experiencing spring. An indescribable aura spread out in all directions with Yi Fei as the center. The spectating martial artists were immediately shocked to discover that the withered Xiao Chao on the ground was rapidly sprouting. In the distant forest, a boundless vitality was attracted and transformed into countless specks of light. Like meteors, they converged into Yi Fei's golden sacred sword. The golden sacred sword that was brimming with vitality suddenly became incomparably huge. It was completely comparable to the West Sword Emperor's Sword River. Even the West Sword Emperor was startled. What sword technique is this? Damn it, he's just a nobody. Why does he have so many powerful sword techniques? He's not worthy. He's not qualified. In this world, there can only be one sword genius, and that is me, the West Sword Emperor. Boom! The West Sword Emperor became one with the sword and suddenly transformed into a resplendent immortal sword. He charged out from the hidden Sword River, filled with boiling killing intent. Sword of Death. At this moment, Yi Fei activated the Life and Death Profound once again, reversing life and death. The sword of life in his hand suddenly turned into a terrifying demonic sword that emitted boundless death chi. He raised this sword and used all his strength to clash with the West Sword Emperor's huge sword. Boom! The sky completely collapsed. The sword river disappeared, and the sword light no longer existed. There was only boundless death chi that was like rolling dark clouds that wreaked havoc in the sky. Then, within the havoc of the death chi, a miserable figure with disheveled hair and a sinister expression flew out. You actually. The West Sword Emperor's clothes were torn and a huge wound appeared on his body. Death chi spread out from the wound and crazily devoured his last strand of vitality. Bang! The West Sword Emperor's shattered body exploded in the sky. Along with the spatial belt on his body, he was smashed into pieces by the Sword of Death. He died a violent death. An emperor had fallen just like that. The West Sword Emperor was dead. Boom! The martial artists who saw this scene couldn't help exclaiming. They couldn't believe it and they couldn't accept it. Long live Sword Emperor, Snow Wind Sword Emperor. My Snow Wind Empire has given birth to a new Sword Emperor. Many of the Snow Wind Empire's martial artists were suddenly filled with fanaticism. They didn't care about anything and started shouting. Their voices were hoarse and they were shouting crazily. The corner of Yi Fei's mouth twitched. The Life and Death Profound seemed to be stronger than he had imagined. But it was fine if it killed the West Sword Emperor, but why did it have to destroy the spatial belt as well? What a terrible loss this time. Chapter 1069. Reversal of Fate. The West Sword Emperor was actually killed? The Sword Emperor was actually killed by a nobody. Boom! The Sword Emperor City's cultivators were shocked. The Crown Prince's face was filled with disbelief. Shimin-Zun also widened his eyes as he looked at his brother's corpse. At this moment, Shimin-Zun didn't feel any hatred towards Yi Fei. Instead, he felt a kind of joy and surprise. Shimin-Ji is dead. In the entire Shimin family, I, Shimin-Zun, am the strongest genius. From today onwards, everything that Shimin-Ji has belongs to me. I will take everything from him, including his woman. Even in death, the West Sword Emperor never imagined that not only did his death fail to incite his younger brother's hatred, but it also incited Shimin-Zun's hidden ambition. Of course, on the surface, Shimin-Zun's expression was one of grief. It was even sadder than his own death. But at this moment, no one cared about him. Everyone's gaze was fixed on one person, Yi Fei. The old emperor had already died and a new emperor had been born. Sword Emperor, Snow Wind Sword Emperor. Yi Fei is from our Snow Wind Empire. The Snow Wind Empire's cultivators shouted with all their might. Even Jiang Fan and the others who despised Yi Fei the most and looked down on foreign cultivators were looking at Yi Fei with fiery gazes. They were all very excited. Xue Wushang, Jiang Xiaoma and the other geniuses were also filled with excitement. No matter how much they didn't think highly of Yi Fei, it was a fact that Yi Fei had killed the West Sword Emperor and became an emperor. And this fact would bring great benefits to the Snow Wind Empire. The greatest benefit was that the other empires that had produced an emperor would have to be courteous to them. For example, right now, the kings of the Sword Emperor City no longer dared to detain the Snow Wind Empire's cultivators because they no longer had an emperor. They no longer had the confidence to oppose Yi Fei. Snow Wind Sword Emperor, Lord Sword Emperor, we support you. We all support you. The Snow Wind Empire's martial artists were even more proud. Every one of them held their heads high, suddenly appearing to be superior to others. It must be known that any empire that had produced an emperor would be promoted to a first-tier empire. Yi Fei's appearance instantly turned the Snow Wind Empire into a first-tier empire in the central region. This rise in status was something that many empires could not achieve even after thousands of years of hard work. How could the warriors of the Snow Wind Empire not be excited? Even Jiang Xiaoma and Shui Wushang, who were prejudiced against Yi Fei, began to smile at Yi Fei. Yi Fei, on behalf of the imperial family, I congratulate you on becoming an emperor. Jiang Xiaoma stepped forward and congratulated Yi Fei. The royals of the other empires looked at Jiang Xiaoma enviously. Originally, the Snow Wind Empire was an empire that couldn't even be considered as a third-rate empire. If there were no accidents, the Snow Wind Empire would very likely be destroyed within 100 years. But with Yi Fei's appearance, the Snow Wind Empire was like a salted fish that flipped over. It suddenly became the most dazzling first-tier empire in the central region. How could the royals of the other empires not be envious? Under Jiang Xiaoma's lead, no one dared to obstruct the Snow Wind Empire's team. They excitedly walked towards Yi Fei and made up their minds to gather under Yi Fei's banner. Yi Fei couldn't help being speechless. He still remembered that in the Snow Wind Empire, when he was discovered to be a person abandoned by the heavens, the attitude of these martial artists towards him was as cold as ice, as if they were avoiding the plague. Aside from Jiang Qing, no one had treated him as a companion. In order to curry favor with Beilizhen, many of them had even mocked and ridiculed him. But now that they saw that he had become a young emperor and had even killed the West Sword Emperor, these people's faces had completely changed. They became passionate and submissive. These people are really unrealistic. When Beilizhen is strong, they will curry favor with him. When I'm strong, they will curry favor with me. Yi Fei couldn't hold it in any longer. A trace of ridicule appeared on his face, but he quickly became indifferent again. A group of people trying to curry favor with him wasn't worth it to affect his mood. He only nodded towards Jiang Qing. Yi Fei shook his head and coldly said, "I'm sorry, but I can't accept the title of Snow Wind Sword Emperor." Why? Jiang Xiaoma was stunned. She suddenly had a bad premonition in her heart. I'm not someone from the Snow Wind Empire. I don't have the guts to accept this title that represents the empire. Yi Fei's voice was still indifferent. Jiang Xiaoma clearly felt a sense of ridicule and humiliation. She angrily stomped her foot. Yi Fei, I know that our attitude towards you is indeed problematic. But that was forced by the situation. Whether you're willing to admit it or not, the fact that you were able to enter the buried god's ground is a blessing to our Snow Wind Empire. Then, Princess, what you mean is that you're blackmailing me. But you're right. The Snow Wind Empire helped me a little by being able to enter the buried god's ground. So I promise that the Snow Wind Empire won't be destroyed. That's all. Taking this opportunity, Yi Fei also cut off the last bit of connection he had with the Snow Wind Empire. In any case, he wasn't a citizen of the Snow Wind Empire. After his experience in the imperial capital, he didn't have any sense of belonging to this empire. His words caused the entire place to become silent. Jiang Xiaoma and Shui Wushang's smiling faces suddenly turned pale. They were shocked to find out that Yi Fei actually had plans to destroy the Snow Wind Empire. If it weren't for them standing out and blackmailing him, they wouldn't even know how the Snow Wind Empire would be destroyed. The cultivators of the Snow Wind Empire all stopped shouting. Many of their faces were filled with regret. If this was the imperial capital and Yi Fei said these words, they would definitely laugh at him. There would even be people pointing at Yi Fei's nose and scolding Yi Fei for overestimating himself. But it was different now. The youth in front of them had already become a young emperor. He had even killed an emperor. Such a valiant battle record was enough to make everyone shudder in fear. Yi Fei, what will it take for you to forgive us? What will it take for you to return to our Snow Wind Empire? Jiang Xiaoma wasn't willing to give up. A young emperor had too much influence on the empire. It wasn't easy for the Snow Wind Empire to rise from the brink of destruction to become a first-class empire. How could she give up so easily? In fact, Jiang Xiaoma was already planning to kneel down before Yi Fei. But a gentle wind forcefully stopped Jiang Xiaoma's actions. Yi Fei shook his head indifferently. Your Highness, you don't have to do this. Even if you want to do this, it won't be you. It will be your father. If you have the ability, then make him kneel before me. After speaking, Yi Fei turned around and walked towards the sky, towards the Fist Emperor City. On the city wall, Xia Jun, Lin Tianjiao, and Little Fatty were waving at him excitedly. Yi Fei's face finally revealed a sincere smile. These were his friends, his brothers. They were worthy of him treating them sincerely and risking his life to protect them. Haha, it seems like the Snow Wind Empire is finished. Bailey Zhen is dead and Yi Fei is chased away. The Snow Wind Emperor is truly a fatuous ruler. That's why third-rate empires are like this. First-rate empires treat geniuses like their ancestors. Third-rate empires will only chase geniuses away. In the crowd, the mocking voices of the other empire's royal family could be heard. This made the Snow Wind Empire's cultivators, who were still holding their heads high and feeling superior, lower their heads in regret. Jiang Xiaoma's face instantly turned pale. Only now did the Snow Wind Empire's geniuses realize that since they had already done something, it was not something that could be redeemed with just a few smiles and flattery. Some mistakes couldn't be forgiven once they were made. Father, you were wrong. We were all wrong. We actually pushed away the opportunity to change the Empire's fate with our own hands. Jiang Xiaoma, Xue Wushang, and Ning Zhongchen all turned pale at the same time. Their hearts were filled with deep regret and helplessness. Chapter 1070. Sacred Academy's Conspiracy. Yi Fei did not return to the city. Just as he was about to return, a shocking killing intent locked onto him. Stop. Do you think you can leave after killing the West Sword Emperor? When Yi Fei was dealing with the Snow Wind Empire, the South Spear Emperor did not say a word. When he saw that Yi Fei was about to return to the Fist Emperor City, the South Spear Emperor stood out coldly. Spear Emperor, avenge my brother! We're all from the Divine Martial Sacred Academy. My brother can't die in vain. The reputation of the Divine Martial Sacred Academy cannot be tarnished. Shimen Zun roared with grief and indignation. His words caused a commotion among the cultivators. What? Someone from the Divine Martial Sacred Academy? Wasn't the West Sword Emperor representing the Heavenly Tao Sacred Academy? When did the West Sword Emperor become a member of the Divine Martial Sacred Academy? Many people were puzzled. Only Crown Prince Qinfeng seemed to have understood something. His lips moved, but in the end, he did not say anything and quietly left the crowd. Shimen Zun, that idiot! The South Spear Emperor was furious. It was a secret that the West Sword Emperor joined the Divine Martial Sacred Academy. He didn't expect Shimen Zun to expose it. He didn't notice Shimen Zun's gloomy face after his anger. He just coldly stopped Yi Fei. You want to leave? Give me an explanation. The South Spear Emperor said coldly. What explanation do you want? Yi Fei turned around and stared at his prey like a hunter. A surge of killing intent was boiling in his heart. That was the influence of the battle demon Dao on him. It's simple. Before entering the God Burial Ground, the Divine Martial Sacred Academy's instructor Lu Ming gave me 2 missions. One was to cooperate with Bailey Zhen to deal with you. The other was to persuade all the young emperors and strongest kings to join the Divine Martial Sacred Academy. Since Shimen Zun had already revealed it, the South Spear Emperor did not intend to hide it anymore. He coldly stared at Yi Fei and Dongfang Yu. Bailey Zhen's death is fine, but the West Sword Emperor's death cannot be in vain. Yi Fei, Dongfang Yu, there are only 2 paths in front of you now. Join the Divine Martial Sacred Academy or refuse. Then I can only kill you to avenge the West Sword Emperor. Boom. As he finished speaking, A fierce killing intent suddenly appeared on the South Spear Emperor's body. His words shocked all the warriors present. Yi Fei's expression changed slightly. The Shenwu Sacred Academy wants to capture all the young emperors and strongest kings in one fell swoop, leaving none to the other sacred academies. Lu Ming is really good at scheming, good at scheming. The Divine Martial Sacred Academy was the top academy of the Central Continent. If they could capture all the top cultivators of the Divine Martial Sacred Academy, they would become even more powerful. Apparently, the 4 Saint Academies seemed to be harmonious on the surface, but the competition in the dark was very cruel. The Divine Martial Academy had planned a scheme behind the backs of the other Saint Academies, and the executor of this scheme was the South Spear Emperor. Sigh, that's why I don't want to join the Divine Martial Academy. Although the Divine Martial Academy is powerful, it is easy to break. If you are so domineering, sooner or later, it will cause the other sacred academies to retaliate. Dongfang Yu sighed. Yi Fei also nodded silently. He felt that although the Divine Martial Academy was powerful, it was too domineering and unscrupulous. True strength never depended on schemes, but on one's own strength. I don't want to join the Divine Martial Academy. Yi Fei expressed his attitude. It just so happens that I don't have a good impression of the Divine Martial Academy. Dongfang Yu also laughed. Well, since you refuse, then this heavenless supreme battle has nothing to do with you. A grim smile appeared on the face of the South Spear Emperor. He had expected Yi Fei and Dongfang Yu's refusal. Finally, he looked at the 3 strongest kings of the Fist Emperor City. What about you? Do you also want to refuse? Think carefully before you answer. The 3 of them looked very conflicted. They weren't emperors, so they couldn't get the absolute attention of the Sacred Academy. They also didn't have the courage to offend the Divine Martial Academy. Especially now, the Divine Martial Academy had expressed its attitude that it wanted to capture all the young emperors and strongest kings in one fell swoop. Not everyone was as confident as Yi Fei and Dongfang Yu, who dared to refuse the invitation of the Divine Martial Academy. Very well. It seems that you are also loyal to the Divine Martial Academy. Don't worry. After I kill the 2 of them, I hope you can give me a clear answer. The South Spear Emperor didn't force the 3 strongest kings. Instead, he waved his hand. Suddenly, dozens of strongest kings rushed out from the crowd and coldly separated the people around them, leaving a battlefield. Dongfang Yu was completely furious. He clenched his fists and said angrily, "You've gone too far. Brother Yi, since he wants to die, we'll fulfill his wish. I don't believe that he, an emperor, can deal with the 2 of us." Okay. Yi Fei nodded. He didn't have a good impression of the Divine Martial Academy. Moreover, he had already joined the true Martial Academy. At this time, of course, he wouldn't let the Divine Martial Academy dominate and win over all the emperors and strongest kings. We can't let the Divine Martial Academy's scheme succeed. South Spear Emperor, your life is ours. Yi Fei and Dongfang Yu took a step forward at the same time. Haha, you want my life? Those who obey me will prosper and those who oppose me will die. Instructor Lu Ming has ordered that all the emperors and strongest kings who refuse to join the Divine Martial Academy will be killed. East Saber Emperor, Desert Flame Emperor, when are you going to watch the show? The South Spear Emperor suddenly roared. Immediately, a terrifying saber light appeared in the distant sky. There was also a clump of raging flames. It's East Saber Emperor and Desert Flame Emperor. What the hell is going on? Desert Flame Emperor, aren't you representing the Heavenly Policy Academy? What benefits did the Divine Martial Academy give you? Divine Martial Academy was the strongest. In order to fight against the Divine Martial Academy, the Heavenly Policy Academy and the Heavenly Policy Academy had always been on the same side. Dongfang Yu didn't expect that not only the West Sword Emperor, who represented the Heavenly Policy Academy, but also the Desert Flame Emperor, who represented the Heavenly Policy Academy, surrendered. What benefits? A martial emperor pill that can definitely break through the calamity. Isn't this benefit big enough? The South Spear Emperor smiled coldly. The East Saber Emperor and Desert Flame Emperor also stood beside the South Spear Emperor with indifferent faces. North Fist Emperor, you shouldn't have refused. The Divine Martial Academy has already promised that if we emperors join, each of us can get a martial emperor pill. This benefit isn't something that the other 3 academies can afford. Desert Flame Emperor's eyes flashed with a touch of heat. It's a pity that you actually refused. Then we can only let you die. In the future Heaven List Supreme Battle, emperors can only have one destination, that is to join the Divine Martial Academy. Those who don't join will die. A dense killing intent appeared on the East Saber Emperor's body. Then, together with Desert Flame Emperor, they instantly surrounded Yi Fei and Dongfang Yu. Dongfang Yu, it's not too late to change your mind. The South Spear Emperor shouted coldly. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.